Hello. It's been a long time since I last did a VR stream. It be me. Hello. Hi guys. It has been a fucking hot minute since I last did VR stuff, so I'm a bit rusty. Forgive me. Let me move my camera. Or not. It's attached to my hand. Why? There we go. Thank you for the lurk, Yuki. Thank you so much. Hi guys. I thought I would yap for a bit since it's been a while. Um, Before we get into the actual reading of stuff. Yeah, there's thunder and rain and shit in this world. It's meant to be like a spooky, like horror gothic world. So that's why I picked here today. I thought it'd be I thought it was fitting. Um yeah, I thought it was a good idea to do the reading in VR chat. So it's like more, I don't know, here and like the background is cool. So yeah, a bit more interesting for you than me and my VTuber model just like standing and staring at you, I guess. So yeah, we have my 3D model just now. It's a work in progress. It's pretty much done. There's some little things I still have to tweak. But it does have, let me take this off. It does have all the stuff. So wait, let me stand up. I'm gonna scoot away from the camera while I stand up, just in case something goes wrong. Any hoosters. But yeah, we've got like basically the entire outfit, which is cool. So I've got my skirt, the armor, the undertop, got my wrist stuff, the armbands. I've got boots as well. I'm not gonna shove them on camera because yeah, y'all ain't getting feet. So I'll cry about it. Yeah, we're in like a spooky church mansion thing, I think. Outside your flat for a sec. Yeah, I'm here outside your flat, guys. With the thunder. I've brought the thunder for you. I mean, to be fair, it's been stormy all weekend, so, you know, really could be. Exactly. No feet for free. I hope you guys have had a good week and weekend. I think I last streamed on Thursday with Foop, so I haven't seen y'all since then because I cancelled last night because there was like storms about and I was a little bit scared my ship was gonna cut off and I had some stuff going on, so I was like, I'm not in the best mood to do this, so I'd rather be in the zone if I'm gonna spend the next hour or two reading spooky stories, you know? I want to be like in character for it, I guess. You could put it like that. I do apologise, by the way, if you hear my fan. My fan is needed when I'm in VR because it gets way too fucking hot, so yeah, I have a fan, so I apologise. You have pistachio flavoured Baileys. Okay. Can't say I've ever had that before. Sounds interesting though. That's pretty cool though. I had, what did I have earlier that had pistachio in it? Ah, yeah, my mum and auntie had bought these. You know the Dubai chocolate that went like crazy viral, right? They bought these like biscuits that were for the Dubai chocolate. Hold on, I'm gonna turn avatar light up a little bit. So I had that and it was a bit interesting. Wasn't for me, I will say. But it was like tasty. I don't know, I just had like a bit of a weird like aftertaste, I think. But it was still nice. Oh, it's ice cold as well. She just popped some pistachio ice cream and some Baileys. Oh, right, okay. I mean, that works. It's Baileys. Yeah, I don't understand the craze around it either. I also don't think it's worth the fucking price that it is. Hi, Jamie. But yeah, I just don't think it's worth the price that people are asking for it. I've seen like it for like 20 quid sometimes. I'm like, what the fuck? Also just realized I am away from my fan, so I'm gonna move over a bit. There we go. Hello you too, Jamie. Don't worry about it. Thank you. I mean, Jamie did the textures, like the scarf, the skirt, the undertop, the tattoos. It was all Jamie again. So she did the like the colors and stuff. I did the putting it together, but she did everything else. She did the art. Oh, you just got out the shower. I see. You did your cycling, yeah. It's something like that, Ma. There's like something else in it, but I don't know what it's called. It's like, is it kanaf or something? Kanafe? I'm not entirely sure how it's pronounced, so I beg your pardon. Thank you for the alert, Grace. I hope you're okay. Bruh, you did the hand part. I did the hard part. Well, I guess, but, you know. You still, you know, made it look how it should look. I maybe put the assets and stuff on, but, you know, you made them look how they're supposed to look. Even though it wasn't super sweaty, I had stinky sweat. We don't do stinky in this household. Exactly. Got a shower after exercising. I do. I can't go on. Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Let me quickly pop open a can, because I'm going to need a drink during this. So I'm going to grab my can real quick and pop this open. You're probably going to hear it, because this mic picks everything up, because it's my index mic. Ooh, crack. There we go. Bet you that was nice and HD. So, one thing I will say, I have the usual VR redeems off because I have not modified this avatar yet to be stream safe. So, just to avoid anything slipping out that shouldn't, I'm not doing the usual like wiggle wiggle bounce bounce redeems because I don't want like an accidental nip slip. So the only redeems I think I have on today are like the voice redeems. But yeah, no really moving around ones. I also didn't think they suited the vibe of today. No nippies. I know we can't have nippies out on stream. That's a surefire way to get fucking banned from Twitch. My arm just disconnected. I've not got the oob mode yet. I will do it. I just was playing around with the avatar and making it work before I started doing a bunch of shit to it. Yes, so when I'm in VR I do take a lot off because obviously it works differently. Like a lot of my redeems for my VTuber model go through VTube Studio. So obviously I'm not using VTube Studio, so they not gonna work the same. So I turned a lot of them off. Aww. Jamie's missed you guys. That is very cute. By the way, there is a new channel points, not channel points, a new command in chat. If anyone would like to try exclamation point Ray_MX, have a shot at that. Call chat good girl. Oh my goodness. Everyone in chat, you're such a good girl. There you go. You're a good girl, Ma. Also, you're welcome. You got snapped on. It's fucking great. So it's I've not got tons in it just now, but it's a randomized one. Oh, apparently I'm stepping on Noah too. But yeah, it picks random things. See, I hugged Jamie and stepped on Noah and Ma. Yeah, it's got a few things in there that you can play around with. Oh, I pinched Noah. I like give her a little cheek pinch. Oh, I slapped the heck out of Ender. Yeah, Jamie got hugged. Ender got the shit slapped out of him. R.I.P. Oh my god, Jamie's getting the hugs and the smooches. It's rigged, it is. My wife's getting the good shit. Oh yeah, I swish you about. Pick you up and swish you. Swish, 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 swish. I swished Ma too, picked him up, swished him around. You're welcome. Oh, Ender got head pads. Yeah, Noah keeps getting pinched. She keeps getting grabbed by the cheeks and just pinched. It's the cuteness aggression, what can I say? I can't remember what I've all got. Smooches, hugs, steps, swishes, pinches, head pats, slaps the heck out of. That might be the only ones I have just now. Yeah, exactly. It's the face cheeks. I'm not pinching your ass. Non-consensually. Not today, Satan. Consent is sexy. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Fight them. Yeah, pinch the face cheeks. That's fine. It's the cuteness aggression. You know, you just like grab it. Just, you know, with like a really cute dog or a cute cat. Yeah, like that. So I see y'all as like puppies. I guess. You're welcome. It were. But yeah, that's basically what's going on. What about your right knee? It's true, I could pinch your knee. You do be given gerbil energy. Okay, I can see it. I can see the gerbil. It's just a me when I get you moment, yeah. Maybe a hamster. I could see it. A little hamster with little puffy cheeks. That'd be me. I'd be like a squirrel, you know, or I'd say eating the nuts, stuffing them in your cheeks. You know, and you look like big puff cheeks. Chipmunks do it too. Very cute. I see it all the time because around about like my area there's like a fuck ton of squirrels, right? And we feed them monkey nuts and like peanuts and stuff, so I see them all the time shoving that shit in their cheeks and just like running away with them to their little nests, I guess. Professional nut stuffer? I wanna watch. Ayo. Y'all already decided what I am. Ender down cataclysmically, that's what you are. Why not both? We got two hands, exactly, ma. Got them chunky brown squirrels, but don't say we had skinny grey ones. Yeah, we've got, in the UK there's red squirrels and grey squirrels. Grey squirrels are your, I guess, dominant species. Red squirrels are like endangered. So you usually find them in like national parks and stuff where they're like protected. But around here it's the grey squirrels. Very floofy tails, very cute. They'll come up to the window. If you open the window, they'll take a nut out your hand. Very adorable. No poaching allowed. Exactly. Yeah, literally, they're like my little squirrel pets. I feel like Snow White. Thank you, Hawk. I hope you're having a good day. Honestly, they technically are my pets. They're around all day, every day, and they come up, and when they want fed, they'll knock on the window. Like, it's very cute. Watching a park a month or so ago and I saw a red squirrel look so cute. Yeah, they do. They have like the little tufts of fur on their ears, and it's really adorable. That's okay, Hawk. I appreciate the lurk regardless. You gotta work, you gotta work. Get that money. Gotta work. Make that money, make purse. Sorry, it's an 80s song. 80s is a K-pop band. I wish the bunnies would do that around here. We have rules in our neighborhood about feeding the wildlife, but I mean, they're so fluffy. Yeah, because I guess if you feed them, you're encouraging them to stay around. I will say the squirrels make a fucking mess with the nut casings. Like, it's insane. They also, if they don't get fed, we just got new windows installed last year. So like new window frames and everything, and if they don't get fed, they start chewing the new window frame. So we have like, our windows are like, got teeth marks and shit in them because the squirrels fucking chewed them. So our new windows that we have in the living room outside are now kind of ruined thanks to the squirrels. Yeah, those ones. Money is money for art. That's fair, Hawk. They can stay, I'll sweep them up. Yeah. Okay, no damage to property, you bastard. Yeah, they crunch on the window. Like, they eat the window. It's, like, kind of insane when they don't get fed. They chomp on the window. Also, I just realized I am on orange, so I'm gonna put myself on red so nobody requests off me. Cool. Because I don't want fucking random requests popping up while I'm busy. Because it'll happen. It happens every time. But, yeah, I think the story I'll do today, I don't know how long I'm going to stream for, just because it is hot. I have a fan blowing at me, and yeah, my internet is a bit, sorry, I'm adjusting my headset. My internet is a bit, what's the word? Problematic. with VR chat. So the one story I have up just now is like it's like a 7 or 8 parter. It's a Reddit one that somebody suggested. So we're gonna do that. I will turn off my Spotify because it obviously doesn't fit the vibes. I do have something played like on YouTube that is meant to be copyright free, but I'm really worried that it's not. So do you think you guys could maybe just cope with just rain and thunder sounds and no like background music? Because I'm worried that it's not going to be copyright free, even though it says on YouTube that it is. I don't trust anything. Okay, if you guys are chill with that, that's fine. Especially for stories, that's fine. I did have like maybe background music to put on, but like I said, I don't want to risk it not being copyright safe, and then I try and upload it to YouTube and it's like, oh yeah, your stream's all fucking muted. I'm like, great. So I did try, but I don't know, I don't trust it. I don't trust anything. But yeah, so the Reddit story we've got today is called, what was it called? Let me scroll up. It is called We Made Up a Ghost and Now It's Killing Us. That's what it's called. I don't know who suggested it. With the forum, when we did the debutathon forum thing, it doesn't tell me who suggests what. So I'm not sure who suggested it. One of yous did. But I'm not entirely sure who it was. So that's what we're going to read today. It is pretty long. Like I said, it's like an 8-parter. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, sorry, it's a 9-parter. I have 9 tabs of this open. But yeah, that's what we're going to do today. And hopefully I don't die. Yay! I'm going to take another drink before we start because I need a drink to wet my mouth. Don't take that weird. I'll give you guys a moment if you need to go get like snacks or anything and a drink and stuff. If you'd like to set the vibes for yourself, you're more than welcome to. Time to get comf, indeed. Go get your drinks and your snacks, and if it's cold enough, a blanket, and wrap up warm. Reading ghost stories in the summertime. Interesting, I know. I didn't want to wait till October to do this, because that seems like a bit of a piss take on my end. But yeah, with a blanket, imagine it being that cold. Oh yeah, I couldn't. I'm literally sat, I'm not to be TMI, I'm sat here in a vest top, my underwear, and a fan blowing between my legs. You're welcome for that image. Halloween is all year round, that's true. Oh, well, for me it is. You know what I'm like, I play horror games all the fucking time. Indeed. I might turn the thunder down because the thunder does get quite loud and I don't want it to get louder than me. So let's pause my Spotify so we can hear the place without it. Yeah, basically same. Just bras are uncomfortable, that's why I've got a vest top on instead. And let me turn the thunder sound down a bit. Turn the rain up a little bit. Because the rain is nice, we like the rain. Make myself brighter. Also, do we like the red background? Do you like this? Or would you like something else? Y'all wanna borrow my AC? Yeah, literally. Oh, it's humid as fuck. The humidity is in like 90 something here just now. I'd love to borrow your AC and just sit in front of it. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to see what the sound volume's like. Is the rain nice? Is it too loud, too quiet? I think it's okay. It looks okay on my end, but I don't know what it's like for you. And is the thunder, like, not too loud? I did turn it down a bit. I turned the thunder down and I turned the rain up. Yeah? Nice. Okay. Right, so we can either do here or there is a way I can actually change textures. So I can do this and it goes to like a greenish blue background. Or there was like a different wallpaper with the background. So there's a brighter wallpaper with this background. Oh, did we like the green and blue? Okay, okay, okay. We can do that. There's also other places. There is in here. Oh, you guys can't see much, actually, now that I think about it. There's like a coffin bed here. There's also in this room. Sorry, my hair is fucking swishing all over the place. Yeah, there's in this room. There's, I think, an upstairs, maybe somewhere. There's a basement as well. Whee! So there's upstairs where it's like proper, like rainy windows and stuff. Okay, so you like the green and blue because it complements the purple. Nice, nice, nice. I'm showing you all around as well. So we've got the background with like the rainy window and stuff. About to jump down. Give me a sec. Whee! Thank God you guys can't see. Okay, so there's also in here, which is also really cool. Like stained windows and stuff. It's like a little like witch's hut. So there's like a cauldron and stuff. There's also like this as well, with like the stained window in the background. Yeah, take you to church. Indeed, it is really nice. But yeah, there's this. We can have this. There's like the lights in the background. You get some of the stained window. There's other stuff going on. But it's up to you. You guys are the ones that are going to be staring at it, so whilst I yap. So I'll do whatever you guys would prefer. I'm also going to quickly switch around my windows because I need the Reddit window to be closer to me. So I'm going to move you guys up here and do this to the Reddit window here. I'm going to size it up because I am fucking blind. I am very blind, so I need it big so I can read. So I cannot see in VR very well, as I'm sure you've worked out. So I'm shifting myself properly so I'm in front of my fan better. There we go. Right, got that there so I can still see chat. Have you heard the other version of Take Me to Church? The other version? Snail Lurch? What? What? Wait, whoa, what did I miss? Godray, I had to clean my glasses when we were in VR yesterday. It was like, oh, I can't see crap. Couldn't read names. Yeah, I'm so blind. I should have glasses and I should wear glasses, but I don't. So basically, I got them like 6 years ago, I want to say, and they made me feel a bit sick. Like I feel like the depth on them was really weird. Like things looked like they were like tilting really weirdly, and I was like, I am not doing that. Not today, Satan. You got no choice to wear yours, but okay, for work, that's fair. So, sorry to pester. So do we like down here or do we want the green and blue windows? Take a pick. This is the witch's hut or we got the stained windows, it's up to you. Or the rainy windows. There was a few places that were nice. So it is up to you. 4 eyes since grade 7 is insane. You like the green and blue windows or this current one? Okay. Thank you, Jamie. If I don't wear glasses and I try to work, I get a migraine or end up blind either, as I can still operate without them. Happy to keep them on at all times. No, that's fair. I can understand that. It would be a pain otherwise. I will say if ads play, we will take a break when I'm reading, maybe, probably, so people don't miss stuff. My eyes start getting blurry like after how long I can reach. Okay, that's fair. Noah, Ender, Ma, I know you're there. Pick a background, please. I beg. I beg you guys, please. So I can start. I need to know what you guys want. If more people say the green and blue windows, we'll just go with that. Or if more people say down here. So you like this one. Okay, that's fine. So Noah likes this one. Jamie also likes this one or the windows. Get myself set up in bed because I'm going to use the stream's audiobook to go to sleep with. Okay, Ma, you do that. You do what you've got to do, that's fine. I love that I'm the audiobook of the night. You were very welcome. I had a feeling that was going to happen, so I don't mind. This one, I flipped a coin. Okay, we'll just stay here then. Oh, that's fair. That is fair. Thank you, guys. Right. Alright, get yourselves all situated. Let me know when y'all ready and we can start. I have my window and I can kind of see it. As best as I'm going to. That's fine, Ma. I'll wait till you're back. Driving from England to Scotland in the time frame of 6-7 hours. Yeah, I can imagine. But yeah, we'll wait till you're back. We'll just yap. Yeah, if you can't choose, just flip a coin is what Ender does. Because I don't want to be like, oh, we're doing this, and then everyone fucking hates it, and I'm like, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean it. Don't hurt me. Please. Yeah, I don't want to pick something everyone fucking hates. Coin flip, or yeah, wheel spin. You do wheel spins too, Ender. Yeah, it's a nice background, I like it. It's spooky, it's got the stained glass window, it's got pretty lights. I think there's bats flying around occasionally, and you can still hear the rain and stuff. I was maybe gonna stop for ad breaks, but I don't think I'm gonna, just so it's like consistently going for the YouTube video, and for people that can hear it. I feel a bit bad, but it's how it's gotta be, I'm afraid. Coin flip command. Aye, fine, I'll make one for the indecisive people. I had to wheel spin for my perfume the other day. I wanted a scent but was indecisive. Got Killer Queen by Katy Perry and it smells so good to me. Let's go. Can't wait for fall, winter when I can wear it in public again. No, that's fair. I just can't wait for that for when it's cold. I can't stand this heat and this humidity. Like, I'm just not built for it at all. I'm built for like wearing about 10 million layers and having like really fluffy pajamas, really fluffy blankets, hot water bottles, stuff like that. Like, I live off of soup. I love soup, and fucking trying to eat soup in the fucking summer. No, it's torture. Oh, okay. Oh, a lot of people aren't a fan of that. No, that's fair. I usually like the smell of that. I used to get like bags of it when I was a kid that you would like sit in like a bowl on the table. Yeah, the fluff returns, exactly. No. I'm just chatting. Ma said we'd be right back, so I'm waiting for Ma to come back because he's using this as an audiobook, so I don't want to start without him. So I did say, I put in the stream title, it was a bit of yap and ghost stories, so I haven't yapped in a bit. I haven't yapped in a bit on VR chat, so I thought, fuck it, why not? So I do not mind. Do not worry about it. I'm probably only going to stream the length of time it takes me to read the story, because I think my throat, my mouth, and everything else will be dry after that. So, okay, you hate the smell of the weeds when it's been smoked, but that's about it. It just gives you a migraine. Ah, I got you. That is fair. It's usually like a very, very long time ago when I was a child. It was very trendy in your house to have like a bowl of like it dried on your like in a like on your like living room like coffee table or something, or like your what is it called? Oh my god, what is the word? I can't think of the word. Like the... Oh my god, like random cabinets you have around the house? I can't remember what they're called. I think so. I think they were interchangeable. Maybe I'm thinking of the wrong thing. Let me look it up. I'm sure that was in like potpourri and stuff. Often used in perfumery and aromatherapy. Yeah, I think it was in potpourri stuff as well. Yeah, it's a lot of different things. I'm sure it was in. It was always like a different mixture of stuff. I'm sure it was in stuff. Because it was like a good insect repellent, I'm pretty sure as well. That's why a lot of people used to have it on like counters and stuff. You made a flip command, Noah. Okay, I'll add it later. I'll add it for next stream. Yeah, it is. It's the patchouli oil is it's got insect repelling stuff, so maybe I swear I've seen like the flower in like potpourri like dried. Like it looks what's the word? Familiar to me anyway. I could be making it up. I could just be making shit up and talking out a hole in my arse, which is I usually do that. Oh, eucalyptus is also good for insect repelling, gotcha. I will take any insect repellents because I have my window open a lot right now, so I really do actually need to get some form of insect repellent to stop flies and spiders and wasps wanting to come in. Especially when it gets to like August time, I'll never open my window again. I don't care how hot it is. I am so scared of wasps. Like, I can't bear the thought of them being in my room. Like, I'm being so serious. I am so scared of them. Oh, you can get it in potpourri. Okay. Okay, I was right. I'm not, okay, okay, I was, like, being delusional. Okay, that's fine. Dr. Teal's eucalyptus and spearmint works pretty well. If you like Irish Spring, it works too. Gotcha, I will look those up, because I do want something to just sit on my windowsill. Or to put round my window or something, like an oil that just keeps things from wanting to come in. Because especially this time of year, I can't, because we have nothing else to cool down. Usually about night time I'll open the window and have the window open most of the night. But that means like things like moths will come in. So there was like the other night, I think I got up to go to the bathroom at like 3 a.m. or something. And my cats were in the hallway chasing this big moth. And I mean, it was like butterfly size huge. Like that was a big bitch. Like usually moths are like really tiny, but that was fucking huge. Your mum's generation used Irish Spring soap or put Irish Spring around the house as like ghetto potpourri. That is fair. Eucalyptus and tea tree are go-tos as well, Ender. Gotcha. Tea tree oil, yeah, good for skin. Oh, yeah, I used to have like a tea tree oil spray I'd put on my skin, but the one I have just now is like a... I want to say it's a dupe of one that was really popular like 10 years ago. It was by Mario... something beginning with a B. I don't remember. That was a spray everybody used. It's an Italian name. I'm not going to say it because I will butcher it. And I can't remember how it's spelled either. It's not Mario Bros. Nice try though. Nice try, Ender. Yeah, there was a spray everyone used by the Mario Bros. For your skin. They'd had a skincare line, guys, don't you know? Mario and Luigi, the best skincare people of 2014-15. Give me a second, I'll look it up. Mario. Is it Mario Badescu? Badescu? I don't know however you say his second name. That guy, that spray. I have like a dupe of that from like 10 years ago. Welcome back, Ma. We were just yapping while we waited for you. Yeah, natural insect repellent that doesn't smell dog awful. Exactly. I was generally this one. Mario Badescu. I've definitely butchered his name. But he's the one that had the facial spray and the other like blemish products people used to use. Like there was like tons of them. That's true. I don't think I like citronella either. Oh my god, Noah. You need to stop with the surprise gintles. You're gonna kill Ma one of these days. Right. I will take one more drink and then we'll start. Let me get rid of my keyboard. I really should have got water for this, but I'm dumb and I didn't. Do you mind I'm melting? Yeah, he's already dying. Don't kill him anymore. Right, the story we're reading today is from Reddit. It's in the No Sleep Reddit if you want to read it. It's by Tahi, I think is how you say their name. That's who it's by. I will pop the link for part 1 in chat if you give me 2 seconds. Copy. This is the link. This is the first part if you'd like to read along and see what I'm reading. This is the first part, and you just click the second part, third part, all at the bottom of the story. Someone submitted this on the Debutathon forum. I'm not sure who submitted it, but somebody did, so this is the one I picked. The other one we might do another time, because I don't know if I would do them both in one stream, is a Goosebump story I got recommended as well. It's just, it was very, 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 very long. So I'd probably do it when it's a little less hot. So I picked the shorter of the two. And this one's still quite long, so if you'd like to grab it on your PC or phone or whatever it is, if you'd like to read along, the link is there. Okay. We made up a ghost and now it's killing us, part 1. I just got off the phone. One of the Stonebrook Six, one of my best friends in the world, was killed last night. His husband, Anthony, called me, voice raw with fatigue and emotion. He said that the police didn't know the details of what had happened yet, but last night, Ellis's remains were found in the parking garage of the building where he works. They told Anthony that they would have thought it was an explosion, but there were no signs of any fire or damage to anything other than Ellis himself. They would have said it was an obvious murder, but they didn't know how someone could crush and dismember a human being that thoroughly without heavy machinery, much less spread him across the 12-foot ceiling of floor 38 in that monolithic parking structure like a thick layer of chunky peanut butter. Anthony was crying again by that point, so I assumed I'd just heard him wrong. Then he repeated it, his voice coming in hitching gasps. A co-worker had come out just a few minutes later, after Ellis, to find my friend dripping and plopping back onto the relatively clean concrete below where he'd been pressed into the ceiling. Anthony said that the only way they even knew it was initially him was due to the security footage of him going out towards his car. The video cut out as he approached the area, and when it returned, the timestamp showed 30 seconds had passed without footage. The girl who found him was out less than 5 minutes later, and no one else had entered or left the garage in that time so far as they could tell. Crushed personal effects and initial blood work confirmed it was him. I could feel myself teetering between arguing with Anthony that he must be wrong and breaking into tears myself. I had just seen Ellis 2 days ago when we were all together mourning the first of our circle of friends to die. Those of us that were flying back out of Chicago had ridden together to the airport, and after Mills had caught our flight back to Austin, me and Ellis had just hung out at the airport restaurant until my flight came up. Our mood had been sad because of Cassidy's funeral and everything that followed, but we were trying to make the most of the time we had left. Ellis was telling me about his wedding and showing me pictures. I still felt guilty for not making it in person, but I just started my new job at the time. Ellis, like always, understood and worked to make me feel better about it. I told him some about the girl I've been dating. The relationship was still improving after 6 months, which was a record for me. Ellis said that very thing, but then quirked an eyebrow at me. He asked if I'd realised how I was looking at Mills the past couple of days, and I tried to play it off like he was joking, but I knew he wasn't. In that subtle way he was trying to nudge me to consider if I was still in love with Millicent, like I had been when we were growing up. But my head was too full already from everything else, so I pushed the question away, gave him a hug, and headed to my flight. That was the last time I talked to Ellis before something tore him apart. I hung up with Anthony after an hour, my throat raw and feeling of exhaustion weighing down my every step as I went to the bedroom and collapsed onto the bed. I wanted to cry, but couldn't, as though the engine of my heart was too busy burning through gallons of fear and guilt to allow even a drop of sadness into its chambers. I tried to sleep, but after a while I gave up on that as well and began to write this account. I need to get it all out and away from me. I realised that I've jumped in the middle of all this rather than the start. I'm tired and not thinking straight. Let me provide a bit of background and then I'll talk about Cassidy's funeral and everything that happened after it. I had 4 best friends growing up. Ellis Macquarie, Millicent Davis, Thomas Wall and Cassidy Friel. I think we were unique among many groups of childhood friends in that we all come together at the same time, Mrs. Webber's 3rd grade classroom, and we were all equally close to each other. Aside from the occasional childish arguments, we never fought with each other, and as we got older, we somehow managed to safely navigate the choppy hormonal seas of 2 pairs of hetero guys and girls and a 3rd guy that was gravitating towards bi-curiosity. This is important because as I start to question my memories about so many things, I keep returning to my idea of friendships with the people closest to me. Ellis, who was always the kindest of us, Mills, who was the smartest and kept the rest of us out of trouble on several occasions, Thomas, who was always so moody around others but so light and happy when it was just the 5 of us, and Cassidy, who was shy and sweet, and I now think died terrified. I don't have any close family left. My father died when I was 15 and my mother doesn't like talking to me anymore. My old friends fall into 2 categories. College friends that I rarely keep in touch with beyond social media, and my best friends from my days at Stonebrook. It sounds strange because we didn't meet at Stonebrook, which was our middle high school before it was closed. We had spent 3 years together at Jackson Elementary across town, and we were just as close then as we were later, but it was almost like our group identity wasn't fully cemented until we got to Stonebrook. 5th grade rumour was that the place had been a small college 50 years earlier, and I do think that was true. It was certainly an old building, and the shape and layout of the rooms retained faint traces of its earlier life. The building was shaped roughly, like a hash mark, with 2 long wide corridors intersected perpendicularly by the 2 other long wide corridors. The centre square of those crisscross lines were filled by a small gymnasium that actually had a pool underneath its motorised floor, though the floor was kept locked and the pool had supposedly long been drained dry. But the age and uniqueness of the school, its quiet sense of history and mild creepiness, it had an effect on us. We stuck together even more than usual, making few outside friends. We worked to get into the same classes, and the few times when one of us was by ourselves, the wait until the bell rang was interminable. Sorry if I butcher a couple words during this, I apologise. It was during one of these isolated classes when I first thought about the school being haunted, and even now, having talked about everything this past weekend with others, that's still one of my few clear memories of our time at Stonebrook. Some small idea, an idle daydream, a simple what if. What if the school was haunted by a ghost? I got the news about Cassidy's death last Wednesday. It was Thomas that called me, just as he'd called the others. After I moved away at 15, after Stonebrook was closed, the group had drifted apart. Thomas and Cassidy had stayed the closest, and sophomore year of college they'd gotten married. In the 10 years since, they had generally seemed happy the few times we talked or got together, but I knew they had ups and downs. Thomas told me on the phone that they'd been legally separated for the past 3 months but were trying to work things out for themselves and their little girl. And then Cassidy had gone missing one morning and was found 5 hours later in the groundskeeper's shed of the park across the street from their apartment. The police were investigating it as a potential homicide due to the strangeness of the death, but there were no leads. Thomas had been on duty at the hospital where he worked as a physician's assistant, so his alibi was solid. Worse was that he seemed to have been drowned, despite being in a dry room with no clues as to how she got there. I couldn't get into Chicago until the morning of the funeral, but afterwards we all went back to Thomas's house. They'd been living together during the separation, and the 4 of us sat around his living room. I found myself looking out the window at the park across the street, wondering where the shed was where my friend had been found. We'd been talking about Cassidy for the last 3 hours, telling funny stories and listening to Thomas go on emotional monologues about how much he loved her and how he'd failed her, which was always followed by us reassuring him that she had loved him too, and that none of this was his fault. He would always glance at me at this point, and I would try to give him a comforting smile while hoping it was enough, because I didn't know what else to say. But as the evening wore on, you could feel the conversational momentum grinding to a halt. It was just past 8, but our tiredness and sadness was palpable. Still, I looked at Thomas, and I knew that his daughter was staying at his parents' house overnight, and I hated the thought of him being alone. So, at the next lull, I suggested some or all of us stay the night with him. He looked like he was going to argue, but then he nodded with a weary look in his eyes. Yeah, I think I'd like that. For any of you that want to, though I know some of you have rooms already paid for. Millicent grinned. My hotel room looks like shit anyway. Ellis murmured agreement, and I felt slight buoyancy that I had found a small way to help. That's when I ruined everything. The Stonebrook Six are back together again, and as soon as I said the words, I regretted them. I had meant it as a joking, overly dramatic and silly proclamation to get cheap laugh out of others, but as soon as I said it, I realized that Cassidy was barely in the ground and I was talking about us being all together. Thomas glared at me, while Mills started shaking her head, her eyes wide. Why would you say that? Ellis's tone was more hurt than accusatory. Why the fuck would you say that, Alex? I felt like I could hardly breathe, my eyes roving between the three of them. Fuck, I'm so sorry, that was stupid. I'm just not used to Cassidy being gone and... Thomas stood up, his expression hard. This isn't about Cassidy. Why would you call us the Stonebrook Six again? Is that some kind of fucking joke to you? Mills was on her feet now, putting herself between me and him. Tom, chill out. He doesn't remember, you know that. Thomas glanced down at her, his face reddening. Then how the fuck does he remember the Stonebrook Six? I was growing more confused and alarmed by the second. What? That's what we called ourselves. I remember we called ourselves that, the Stonebrook Six. It was a joke. Ellis had stood up now too, moving closer to me. Okay, Alex, that's right, sorta. But do you remember why it was a joke? I could feel tears stinging my eyes now. I didn't understand why everyone was so mad at me, especially if they weren't mad about me saying it with Cassidy gone. It was because there were only 5 of us. We were talking about nicknames one day and about how our group should have one as a joke. We talked about calling ourselves the Stonebrook 5 for some reason, but it ended up all agreeing that the Stonebrook 6 sounded cooler, like an old outlaw gang. So we called ourselves the Stonebrook 6 even though there were only 5 of us. Thomas took a step closer. Bullshit. Such bullshit. You know, I've never fully believed your convenient I don't remember shit. But how the fuck are you pulling out shit like that and not remembering what it really was? Mills gave him a shove that didn't move him, but got his attention. Fucking back off him. He's not lying. He lost more than we did, so try to remember that. Mills' glare melted away as she turned back to look at me. Alex, it's not exactly like you think. A lot happened and, well, you blocked out most of the bad, I think. We don't understand how or why you don't remember, but you need to know that we believe you and love you. Thomas snorted. Typical Alex makes Cassidy's funeral day about him. Ella shot him a dark look. Button it. We all loved Cassidy. You don't have the market concerned on missing her. Looking back down, he gave me a sad smile. Alex, what you were saying about how we started calling ourselves the Stonebrook Six, that never happened. We started calling ourselves the Stonebrook Six because of the Professor. I felt a rush of fear running through my body at the name. My mouth went dry and shot up like the room was on fire. No. What? No. Mills looked at Ellis. You shouldn't have said anything. You should have left it alone. Ellis shrugged. I didn't bring it up, but he has a right to know. Alex, do you remember the Professor? I shook my head violently and started to move past them out the room. No, I don't want to talk about this. Thomas caught me in a strong grip and pulled me into a bear hug that was equal parts angry and loving. We're going to talk about it, bro. I think it's time. Mills was yelling at him, but he went on. The Professor was the 6th in the Stonebrook Six. I shoved him hard enough that he lost his grip and went staggering back into a low coffee table, his arms pinwheeling as he tried to regain his balance before sitting down hard enough on the small table that one of the legs gave way and sent him sprawling on the floor. For my part, I imagined I looked like a trapped animal, but that was okay because that's exactly what I felt like. Mills had her hands raised as she stepped forward and touched my cheeks. Sweetie, it's okay. We should probably go ahead and talk a little about it now, just so you're not confused anymore. Is that okay? I still wanted to run, but her cool, smooth hands on my face were like a soothing balm. I nodded reluctantly, looking down at Thomas. You okay, man? He stood up slowly and gave me a slight smile. Yeah, I'm sorry, I was being an asshole. Are we cool? I nodded. Sure, man, I'll replace the table. I'm just really freaked out at the moment. Mills stepped back and nodded. I know, let's try talking it out, and if you reach a point you get too scared, we'll stop, okay? Okay. I paused and then pushed on, my eyes going between Millicent and Ellis. So who was the professor? Ellis is the one who answered. It was the ghost, the one we made up, the one that hurt all those people. Right, that is the end of part 1. Gonna give myself a break to have a quick drink. If that is chill with y'all. Hi, Foop. Welcome in. Quick drink. Sorry for slipping up some of the words, guys. It is very hard to read in the VR headset. Quick intermission for everyone to say hello. Thanks, I'm trying. I might need to bring it a little bit closer to me so I can see, because it is hard. It's very blurry in VR. Yeah, sometimes I can't read. I get a bit tongue-tied sometimes. But hello, Foop. Hope you slept well. Welcome to the ghost story reading stream. We just did chapter 1 of We Made Up a Ghost and Now It's Killing Us. On our way to go into part 2. It is. It's going very well. Oh, nice, Ma. That's a good way to do it. Right, we'll get on to part 2 then. What follows is my best recollection of what Ellis told me that night. I want to be clear before I start that I truly didn't remember anything more or different than what I told them or what I've written previously. And it wasn't like I had a giant blank spot from the age of 10 to 15 or 20. I have memories, plenty of memories, of both my time at Stonebrook and what came after. It's just now I believe that I'm missing a great many things and that at least a few of the things I do remember never actually happened. That's the best and only explanation I have for my relative ignorance of our collective past. It scares me, at least in part, because now I know that I've had one or more conversations with the rest of the 6, with my friends, about me not remembering things at all or correctly. This was before they realised how deep-seated my block was and gave up trying out some combination... Let me try that again. This was before they realised how deep-seated my block was and gave up trying out of some combination of frustration and fear that forcing me to remember would do me harm. So not only don't I remember the events themselves, I don't remember them trying to remind me of them. It makes me feel that my memory lapses go beyond shock or trauma, more like someone or something intentionally fucked with my head. Even now, going over what I'm about to relay in this writing, I don't really remember it, at least not well. It's like I saw a movie or a portion of my life and now I have trouble distinguishing what I actually remember from my life and what I'm just remembering from the movie. When I finish writing this, I'm going to call Mills and see if she's okay. Again, below is my best recollection of one of the last times I got to talk to one of my best friends. Alex, I know you say you don't know what we're talking about, and we believe you, we do. But stuff like you mentioning the Stonebrook 6, your reaction when I mentioned the professor, I think you still have those memories in there somewhere, and have just blocked them somehow. Or maybe they're being kept from you. Either way, I think it'd be good for you, for all of us, if we explained a bit, and see if it'll stick with you this time, see if you're ready. Now, as you know, we all transferred from Jackson Elementary to Stonebrook Middle at the start of 5th grade. The building was weird and kinda spooky, and we all mainly hung out with each other. Between classes, we started at meeting up at the big oak tree that stood at the edge of the bus drop-off parking lot. But by 7th grade, we were changing classes as much as the high school and started running into older kids that were pissed that we were crowding their secret smoking spot behind the tree. We looked for another good hangout spot for a couple of weeks, but then Thomas and Cassidy found us a way into the lower rooms. You look a bit lost, so let me explain. The hallways of the school crisscrossed, with the vertical floor halls being used for 5th and 8th grade, as well as special classrooms for things like music and clubs. The horizontal halls were used for 9th through 12th grade, and the administrative offices and the teacher's lounge. But as we figured out over time, each of those halls had another floor below it that wasn't connected to each other like the floors above. It gave each floor its own private basement, and while the rooms had been used for classes at some point in the building's past, by the time we got there, they were mainly for storage or a secret hangout if you could find a door unlocked. The door to the basement of 6th grade's hall didn't lock securely, and by the time October of our 7th grade year had rolled around, we were already hanging out down there regularly. It wasn't as bad as it sounds. There was electricity, and the space was surprisingly clean. There was a certain air of decay and disuse that always hung in the stale air. It was a spooky place, and the few times I was the first one to arrive, I had to fight the urge to go back upstairs until one of you got there. I think maybe that's what got us talking about ghosts. No, I interjected. I remember daydreaming in class about there being a ghost at school. I was by myself and bored. I think I brought it up to the rest of you. Ellis frowned, glancing at Mills and Thomas. Well, that could be right. Either way, it doesn't matter who brought it up first. We were all talking about it, and we were all a part of what came next. At first, it was just us swapping rumours and speculation that we'd heard about the school as a way to pass time during breaks or lunch. Truth be told, most of it was fairly tame. It seemed the place had been a college at one point, but nothing bad had ever happened there that we could tell. No grisly murders or dark rituals, no crazy people or monsters. Of course, mundane fact didn't satisfy us for long. We would talk about the school being creepy, about maybe having seen something or heard something one time. There would be passionate debates about how a place that old and creepy must be haunted by at least one ghost, despite the lack of any evidence to support it. Then we turned to talking about what such a ghost would be like. Cassidy's the one that came up with the idea that it was probably the dead soul of a former college professor. The professor, she suggested, had probably fallen in love with one of his students, and when his advances were rejected, he'd killed himself at the school, possibly in the very room we sat huddled in between 4th and 5th period. It was just a story, of course, and we all knew it, but stories have power, so does belief. I've been thinking a lot about that the last few days, and I think stories are living things. Whether you're telling the tale or hearing it, you feed it with emotion and thought, with imagination and belief, and it evolves and grows. In time, a story can take on a life of its own. Over the next few weeks, we added a great deal to the professor. It became kind of an informal story contest, where we would take turns creating stories that either plumbed some chamber of the ghost or school's past, or reported on some more recent indication of the professor's continued presence at the school. Thomas was the first. This is Thomas's tale. Thomas told us more details about how the professor was seen lurking around the halls of the college in the months following his death. The girl he'd been in love with had dropped out after his suicide, but returned to the following quarter. She was one of the few women at the school at the time, and this, combined with her prior absence, caused her to redouble her efforts to catch up and surpass her peers. One night, when she went to leave the school library, she found that she was locked in and all alone. Well, except for the professor. The next morning they found her bruised and bloody in a gibbering heap. She never returned to the school, and people say she died just a few weeks later of some unknown malady. Millicent's tale. Mills added in how the building was actually built on the tribal grounds of the Arikara, a Native American tribe that once lived in the area. Or to be more accurate, she had added with dramatic flair, a banished offshoot of the Arikara had been shunned by the tribe for their extreme cruelty and dark magic practices. They had used the location as a site for their black rituals, and when they were driven from the land, European immigrants found themselves drawn to the place as well. A village had grown up in the spot in the early 1800s, being a prosperous trade hub for local farmers and distant merchants for nearly 50 years. Then, during the height of the Civil War, a small band of travellers had come to town to find every man, woman and child slaughtered. The initial reactions were to blame a rogue detachment of Confederate or Union soldiers, but closer examination showed that the townsfolk appeared to have all turned on one another until the last one died of wounds she inflicted on herself. It was another 30 years before anyone dared to build in the area again, but people have a short memory where there's money to be made. And by 1900, the current town had started growing in that direction, and soon the school was being built. Some say the same dark forces that plagued earlier generations caused the professor to commit suicide and may still stalk these halls today. Ellis's tale. When they brought the closed down college and started renovating it into the middle and high school, they found all these weird lower floor hallways. Apparently, they'd been used for classes at one time, all except one we're meeting in. That one had been a lab the college had set aside for faculty to use, that only a couple ever had. One of those was named Arthur Chester, a chemist that was known for his obsessive devotion to his research and isolated lifestyle. When the school closed, everything was very chaotic, but they did try to make sure everyone was out before they sealed everything up. They went into every underground chamber, calling out for people and checking for signs that someone was being left behind. But Arthur had taken to testing his compounds on himself and lay passed out in a dim corner of a back room. He never stirred, and they sealed him in with no idea at all. When he awoke, it was another 2 days before he even knew he couldn't leave, and the theory was that he suffocated himself with gases from a concoction intended to blow the door off its hinges. All that's known for certain is that his face and hands were torn and broken from where he had frantically flung himself against the heavy metal door until his lungs or his heart finally gave out. Cassidy's Tale. A few years back, before we were at Stonebrook, one of the freshmen saw something moving in the woods near the school. They thought it was a deer at first, and they pointed it out to a friend, but the friend didn't see anything. Intrigued and wanted to prove their friend wrong, they tried to get their companion to go with them into the wood's edge, but they refused. Determined now, they set off by themselves while their friend went off to class, yelling in a stern admonition that the teacher was going to skin them alive for missing class. When the freshman didn't come home that night, everyone began to search for her. It wasn't long before they zeroed in on her friend and what she might have seen. This led them to the woods, and while they had brought 10 people and a pair of dogs to search for her, it was unnecessary. She was hanging 30 feet up in the branches of a large tree not far in and along the main trail through the woods. Her skin had been flayed away and spread like ragged wings behind her, and her lipless mouth was held open by what they first took to be one of her own notebooks. However, on closer inspection, they saw that it was actually an old essay blue book. Written on the inside cover was the name of the girl the professor had loved. These stories were told and retold over the course of several weeks, and every time that it would come to your turn, Alex, you would pass, saying you were still working on yours. We didn't push you, but we were starting to get tired of just rehearsing the same old material, and for whatever reason we didn't feel like we could move on to new stories or something else entirely until you were finished. So we started telling the stories to others. I think we were all doing it on our own at first. I remember the first time I talked about it to any of you, about how I told a couple of buddies in gym class about the professor. I was surprised to find you'd all been doing the same thing. Stuff like that isn't uncommon, of course. Every school or town or group of more than 5 people have rumours and superstitions. Most of the time, they have their time in the limelight and then fade away. Some stick around long enough to become urban legends or folktales. But when we started telling people about the professor, it spread quicker and more powerfully than any of us ever expected. Part of it is that we were all telling it like it was true. We had taken to telling each other stories among ourselves, you included, so we all practiced telling details of the tales without stumbling or lacking confidence. Another thing was that even though we were all known to be friends, we were all telling different people who then spread it to others. Within a month, our versions of Professor stories have been told probably 50 times. That's not even counting the mutated versions, the spin-offs, the rip-offs, and straight-up new stories other people were creating out of some kind of strange drive, whether it was just an urge to be part of the current trend or something darker pushing them to do it. By Christmas, people were telling each other to watch out for the professor and don't go to the woods alone during the holiday. We thought it was hilarious, and we were more than a little proud that we had inadvertently created a school spirit, at least for a while. We had kind of figured it would die back down when we came back in January, but that was before Jenna Hastings went missing. Okay, that was part 2, so I'm going to take a quick stop and drink. If anyone would like to have any comments, feel free. Oh my goodness. It's very interesting so far. I like that they've all got their own versions of, I guess, what they've made up for this ghost, and it's pretty interesting. You have a mental image for the tree and it's haunting you. Well, it might. The story has said that stories, the more you tell them, you give them power, and belief also gives it power. So it might come true. You might see that tree in your dreams. I'm joking, of course. I'd rather not. You'll be fine. It's just a tree that people used to smoke at and get hung from, I guess. This one's quite. This one's not too long. Right. Okie dokie. Part 3 time. Jenna Hastings was a sophomore at Stonebrook and she went missing the day before Christmas Eve. The last time anyone had seen her, she was leaving the mall, bags of last-minute Christmas gifts in her hands, and walking across the parking lot towards the fast food place on the corner. We were already out for the holiday break at the time, so it wasn't until a few days after Christmas that it became a big enough deal that the news trickled down to us. I remember us all sitting in my attic, playing Sorry because we were tired of being outside in the cold. Cassidy had just gotten there and was telling us about Jenna, and at first it was mildly troubling and interesting, but that was all. Jenna was 3 years older than us, which at 12 might as well have been 30 years, and while we all had some vague idea of who she was, we didn't have a clear idea of her as a person. Instead, she was more of a point of interest or a cautionary tale. But then Thomas decided to make a joke out of it. Cassidy had finished her short recounting of what she had overheard from her mother's phone conversation, and we were about to get back to the game when Thomas piped with, "Maybe the professor got her." We all froze and looked at him. His proud grin started to fall away, and Mills punching him in the arm finished the job. "Idiot," she said with a scowl. "That's not funny and it's dumb. The professor's made up." We were all nodding in agreement, and even at the time I knew that something felt wrong. We were all either 12 or 13, and none of us were known for being overly sensitive or afraid of dark humour. But we all shared a kind of desperate intensity that moment, a need not to only rebuke what Thomas said, but deny it. I've thought about us sitting in that attic, scolding him while he grew sad and sullen. He didn't like being yelled at, but he didn't fight back like he usually would. It was as if he knew as much as the rest of us that he'd made a mistake beyond bad taste. I think that's one of the first times I knew we had somehow started to believe in the professor too. The following week we were back in school and we had carefully avoided any further mention of the professor among ourselves during the break, maybe in some unconscious attempt to kill the idea before it took deeper root. But our hopes that the rest of the school would have forgotten about our stories over the holidays were dashed as soon as we got off the bus that first morning back. 2 of the school janitors had just set up a pressure washer to blast the paint off the concrete walkway just a few feet from the bus lot. They had already started spraying, but we could see the neon green words emblazoned across the ground like a brand. "The professor took her, who's next?" We found out later that the vandalism had just been discovered half an hour before the buses started arriving, and they had removed it by that afternoon, but the damage had already been done. The school was on fire with fear and speculation now, and the larger world had started to take notice too. During a class change, we saw 2 policemen out at the walkway taking photographs of the now partially obliterated message. Then after lunch, we realised that they were still there, questioning several staff about it as well. The reason was obvious to everyone. They thought it'd be connected to Jenna's disappearance, or at the very least they wanted to cover every base just to be safe. Either way, this investigation just further validated the professor's existence to most of the students. Within the week, we were all hearing new stories about the school and the professor pop up. Sometimes they were told to us by the same people we had initially told the original stories to. For the first few days back, we tried to laugh it off or ignore it, and we didn't talk much about it among ourselves, but there was a tightening cord of tension running through all of us. It was quickly becoming something we didn't just not discuss, but something we actively avoided discussing. Then a couple of things happened that changed everything. The first was that 3rd week of January. Jenna Hastings was found. She'd run off with a boy from the next town over that she'd been secretly dating for over a year. He was an older boy who'd made promises of taking her away from the drudgery of high school life and bossy parents, and who wound up leaving her at a burger joint 2 states away, not dissimilar from the local one he'd picked her up from the day before Christmas Eve. The town breathed a collective sigh of relief, and no one was more happy that she had been found than us. We began joking about how stupid people were to believe the professor, how silly it all was. We would sit in our underground hideaway, sounding superior and proud of how everyone had come to believe in something we had made up. But the jokes and the laughter weren't quite the same as they had been before. Now they felt like we were whistling as we walked through a graveyard, our forced humour and bravado meant to keep the dark things at bay. In the next couple of months, talk of the professor did die down from its fever pitch after the graffiti, but it never really went away, and by the last week of school that year we'd just come to accept that for good or ill, we had created a new legend for the school and the town. I say for the town because there was actually a newspaper article about the professor about 2 weeks after Jenna Hastings was found. It was a puff piece in the local paper, and it was trying to trade on the drama of the missing girl who'd been found while not explicitly saying her name. But it was undeniably about the teacher ghost that locals had started talking about in recent months, and gave poor summaries of a couple of the stories. A few of our parents asked us if we'd heard anything about this ghost crap at school, and we all denied it earnestly. We were ready to put it behind us. Then Ellie Marks, or as she was frequently called by her cruel fellow freshman, Ellie Skidmarks, made the mistake of picking on Cassidy at school. Ellie was a heavy-set, unfortunately proportioned girl, and that combined with a dim intellect and terrible temper led her to frequently shift between pitiable victim and merciless bully depending on her surroundings. Likely from the outside, it was like watching some kind of social casualty experiment play out. She'd get picked on, she would become hurt and angry, and she would take it out on younger, smaller students. Our group really had much problem with bullying, in part because we stuck together and kept to ourselves, and in part because Thomas and Mills would happily beat ass if someone tried to test things. Ellie had tried to test things a couple of times in the past when Cassidy was alone. Cassidy, who was small and beautiful and delicate, who had boys already noticing her despite her best efforts to fade into the background. I think we all knew that Ellie had been dealt a harder hand in life than Cassidy had, and that's part of why she had never gotten worse than a strong warning from Mills when she had tried saying mean things to Cassidy in the past. But the last week of school, the PE classes were all devoted to some combination of field relays and dodgeball, and Ellie just couldn't resist. Myself, Mills, and Cassidy were all in the same dodgeball game that day, and we were on the second round. Dodgeball always runs the risk of turning into a brutal free-for-all, but the teacher, Miss Perkins, did a good job of keeping her PE classes in line. No one had gotten hurt, and everyone was having a pretty good time so far. When Ellie got the ball in that second round, she headed straight for Cassidy. Based on the rules, she wasn't supposed to go over her team's half of the basketball court to make her throw, and the first throw she didn't. The rubber ball thudded into Cassidy's lower back, startling her more than hurting her, I think, but it was enough to get her off balance and send her to the floor. It was like seeing a fallen gazelle for Ellie. She scooped up another ball, and as she charged towards Cassidy, waiting until she was standing over her before throwing it hard at her upturned face. Cassidy let out a yell, and Miss Perkins began running over, blowing her whistle and hollering for Ellie to get back. The older girl started mumbling some half-hearted excuse that it was an accident, with a smirk on her face said that she knew she was caught and didn't care. Me and Mills rushed over to Cassidy, who was sitting up and had a large red welt starting to rise on the left side of her face, and her eye kept pouring water. When she saw the two of us, she started crying. I bent down and hugged her. Behind me, I could hear Mills talking to Ellie. "You just fucked up, Skidmark. We're gonna get you for this." Normally, Miss Perkins would have jumped Mills for language and a threat like that, but I think she half wanted to hit Ellie herself. So she just told Ellie to go to the principal's office immediately and that she would be coming along in just a minute. She then turned back to Cassidy, who had helped to her feet. Perkins was asking if she was okay, if she needed to go to the nurse, when we started to hear Ellie scream. It took a moment for anyone to find Ellie because the sound of her scream seemed to echo down the 12th grade hall into the gymnasium. Perkins and an assistant principal, who left the school at the end of that year, finally realised she was screaming from behind the locked metal door that led down into the lower rooms beneath the 12th grade hall. They fumbled around until they found the key, and when they opened the door they saw Ellie laying at the bottom of the stairs in a screeching heap. Her right leg had been broken, which could be accounted for by a bad fall down the concrete steps, but what was stranger were the bones of her hands, which had been crushed. They were damaged to such an extent that she could never use the left one well again, and the right one, the one she'd thrown the dodgeball with, ultimately had to be amputated after several failed surgeries trying to restore blood flow. It wasn't lost on anyone that this had all happened right after she hurt Cassidy, and it didn't take long for everyone to also realise that you and Thomas were in class when it happened, and the three of us were standing in front of a couple of dozen witnesses at the time. Plus, there was the fact that Ellie had somehow gotten past a locked door before she fell. But all of that was secondary to the biggest thing that made everyone in school certain of what had caused Ellie's injuries. It was Ellie herself. Well, she never returned to school at Stonebrook, and we never heard of anyone talking to her about it later. Close to 100 people had heard her screaming down in the dark that day. They heard what she said before her cries of pain and terror had compressed into a wavering animal wail. Oh God, oh no, fuck, it's got me. No, get it off me, my hands. No, Professor, no. And then that's the end of part 3. Oh dear. Lucky Ellie got what she deserved, I think. Maybe not as bad as that, but, you know, karma for purposely trying to hurt people. Don't think her hand should have been crushed beyond use, but, you know. Yeah, deserved to an extent, I agree. Also, Flesh-Winged Sunday, my favourite event, you're welcome. That's basically what's happening. Sorry, I just took a quick drink. I'm also readjusting my headset. See if it gets a bit less blurry for me to read. Here we go. Quick adjustment. It is so blurry to read this, but it's a really cool story so far. I like where it's going, although this is a lot of background, and it's not really touching on the current stuff yet. Because obviously current day were what? Cassidy was dead and somebody else was dead? I can't even remember who died. I think it was Alice. So, kinda tea. Any hoosters? Quick stretch before we do chapter 4. My back wants to end me. There we go. Right. Chapter 4 of We Made Up a Ghost and Now It's Killing Us. Stories and beliefs have power, so do names. When Ellie screamed out the professor's name in pain and terror, she cemented the idea of its existence in the minds of everyone that heard it. Even those that didn't want to believe, that called the stories of ghosts and dark rituals childish fairy tales, had a black sliver of doubt slid into their heart that day. And for those that already believed or wanted to, it was confirmation of something both wondrous and terrible. I remember us all talking about it one time a couple of years after Ellie was attacked, before the worst of it started happening. We were still comfortable and confident at that point, feeling special, and we talked about it all more freely in those days, about what the professor might actually be and how it all worked, about how other people must look at it, and why they were all at least a little afraid of us. That's when Mills had spoken up. She said that if you look a town full of people, most any town, you'd have some people that believed in God, some that didn't, and some that fell in between. But if one day that town saw a miracle, something that seemed to clearly point to the existence of God and beyond that, seemed to indicate that God liked some people better than the rest, it would be interpreted differently by different people. Some would ignore or try to explain away the miracle, even if there was no reasonable alternative available. Some would embrace it and find comfort in the proof it provided, but some would just be scared. Because what's more terrifying than the idea that God does exist, but he really doesn't like you very much? Now, I believe in God, and I think whatever God is, it's a lot kinder and fairer than the professor. But after Ellie's fall, we weren't worried about the professor being kind and fair, we were focused on it being on our side. I'd like to think that we were somehow manipulated by it in the weeks and months and years that followed, pushed to turn a blind eye to the true nature of the thing we had let into our group. But I think that's a lie. Having proof to match what our hearts already knew was a relief in many ways. And knowing that the professor would protect us went a long way towards easing our fears about what we might have played a hand in creating or at least waking up. We felt chosen and special, and if it accorded us extra respect and difference from the other students, what was the harm? It reminds me of a story my grandfather told me growing up. There was a little boy who lived in the wilds of India with his family for most of his childhood. When he turned 12, he got to work as a servant for the prince. One day the prince went out riding with two of his friends and took the boy along to act as a steward. They'd been riding for several hours when they came to a clearing. In the middle of the clearing was a massive tiger sunning itself on the tall grass. The prince and his friends began excitedly boasting to each other about what they could do, how they could fight the beast even without a weapon. They were somewhat drunk at the time, but they were also feeding off each other's foolishness and ego, so it wasn't long before one slipped from his horse to address the others. The first friend said, "I will go into the grass and wrestle the tiger into submission." With that, he stripped off his shirt and ran at the tiger, leaping onto its back. The animal roared in surprise and anger, and within a couple of seconds it had torn the man apart. The prince and his other friend were horrified, but they were more determined than ever to dominate the tiger and avenge their friend. The boy tried warning them to stop, but the prince slapped him and told him to be silent. The second friend vowed, "I will go into the grass with my club and beat the tiger into submission, or kill it if it will not submit." With that, he hunkered down and began creeping through the tall grass towards the great cat, as though to sneak up on it. When he was 10 feet from the tiger, it leaped on him and ripped his throat out. The prince was now beside himself with fear and anger. He roughly shoved the boy forward, intending on sending him to his death so no one would be alive to contradict the prince's grand tale of how he fought valiantly to save his friends from a giant tiger. The boy did as he was told and went out to the great beast. The tiger studied the boy carefully as he approached. His large yellow eyes narrowed as he glanced between the small figure and the prince, who stood back at the tree line. For his part, the prince already had one foot in the stirrup, ready to make a run for it if the tiger headed his way. He wanted to see the insolent boy killed, but not badly enough to risk himself. But the boy wasn't killed. Instead, the tiger licked his face with a giant pink tongue, and if the prince wasn't mistaken, he heard the beast begin to purr when the boy put his arms around that massive shaggy neck. The boy said something in low tones to the tiger before releasing his neck and returning to the prince. "How?" the prince demanded, all fear now forgotten in the face of his wounded pride and indignation. "How did you face the tiger and not get killed, boy?" When the boy said nothing, he pulled a musket from the sash at his waist, his jaw hard with anger. "No matter. If you can face it, so can I." The prince let out a grunt as a small knife was shoved into his gut, and when he looked down, the boy twisted the knife and yanked it back out. Incredulous, he went to point the gun at the boy, but the tiger was on him now, removing the gun and the arm that raised it with a single swipe. As the prince lay dying, the boy and the tiger stood over him, covered in his life's blood. The tiger absently licked the back of the little boy's head as he answered the prince. "I grew up near these woods, your majesty. This tiger has been one of my best friends for years. He would never harm me or let me come to harm, nor I him." The prince, choking on blood, gasped out a response. "But why? Why not warn us before we tried to fight it?" The boy laughed, bending over to wipe his small knife off on the prince's fine brocade. "Do you need the advice of a servant boy to tell you not to fight a tiger? You thought there was fun to be had, and there was. It's just that it was for my friend the tiger, not for you. And why should I spoil his fun? He's a true and loyal friend, while you I hardly know at all." "Damn, your grandmother told you some fucked up stories," Thomas said with a snort, getting a dirty look from Ellis. It was getting late now, and I was reaching my limit for what new terrible things I could hear for the night. Yet I found myself asking Ellis for more. "What do you think the point of the story was, Ellis?" Ellis smiled, his eyes tired. Telling all of this, dredging it up, was taking a toll on him too. "I've never been sure. I used to think it meant be careful who you fuck with, because you don't know when you'll run across someone badder than you. Or maybe that people will do or accept just about anything for something or someone important to them, regardless of who might get hurt in the process. But now I think the message is that when you're best friends with a tiger, you start looking at other people as nothing more than prey." The summer after Ellie was a fun and exciting time for us. We were scared, but only enough to make it more interesting. We'd come around to the idea that there was a tiger in town, but that it was our friend. We debated trying to communicate with the professor, but Mills and me were against it from the start. And with nothing new happening around us, at first we weren't even sure the professor could leave the high school grounds. But by late June, we'd heard several stories of people having strange encounters in the town. A man being chased by a shadowy figure while walking through General Park late at night, a store downtown having all its windows broken out with several employees inside with no signs of how it was done or why. These things, if they were related to the professor, had sinister connotations. In truth, Mills and I argued, even though it was arguably payback for her hurt in Cassidy. Ellie's accident was fairly brutal and extreme. Maybe the professor was friendly to us and maybe it wasn't, but it certainly wasn't dangerous. It certainly was dangerous either way. Then the car accident happened, or almost happened. Do you remember that part, Alex? Okay, fuck. Well, one day you and your mum and you were going to the grocery store. You know that big intersection up from where you lived? A gas truck missed the light as you were crossing the intersection. It should have hit your car right where you were sitting in the passenger seat. The fucking thing was going better than 40 miles an hour and would have killed you. I'm sorry, Mills, but it's the truth. It would have killed him if it had hit. But it didn't hit. Less than 5 feet from outside your car door, the truck hit something else. We went and looked at the car the next week at the junkyard. It was crushed up to the window of the cab like it had ran into the side of a battleship. Hell, I don't know how it didn't explode, but it didn't. The driver died, but you were all fine, and well, after that we knew. The professor really was our friend. We didn't talk about it with other people, but news of the wreck had spread through the town. There was even a picture in the newspaper. By the time we got back to school, our social standing had changed again. Some people avoided us like the plague, while others actually started trying to befriend us to get into the circle. But of course, the circle already had its sixth and final member. You were the one that called us that first, the Stonebrook Six. We laughed at the time, but it stuck. When it somehow got out into the rest of the school, we weren't worried or embarrassed. We wore the name as a badge of honour, a symbol of how special we were to have a tiger as a friend. But then Ellis stopped, looking around at the others and back at me. I'm beat, man. I'm gonna start messing up on some of the details, and I think you've heard more than enough for now. We can talk about it later, okay? I nodded my understanding, feeling a mixture of disappointment and relief. We all hung out quietly for a few more minutes before finding spots to sleep for the night. The next day none of us discussed it, and I haven't talked about it further with anyone yet. But that needs to change. I'm about to stop writing for now and go call Mills, see if she knows about Ellis and how she's doing. I don't want to talk more about this with her over the phone, so I'm going to see about flying out to visit her in the next couple of days, possibly after a talk with my mother. Because I know my mum has to know some of this, or know something about something. There has to be some reason why she abandoned me with Aunt Judy at 15 and will barely talk to me even now. I trust what Ellis told me, what I might learn from the others, but I'm not taking anything for granted and I just don't know. I feel like Ellis was hiding things from me, even if it was with the best intentions. I don't think my dear mother will be as worried about my feelings. Okay, and that was chapter 4. Also, hello 4. This is the new 3D model. I did make it myself, even though I'm in VRChat. This is the models that I use for VTubing, can be used in VRChat, so this was made by me. It is my model. It could also be used for VTubing as well. It's just the type of file it is. It is an FBX file, the more you know. Also, I'm glad you're having a good time, Hawk. But yeah, this is the new 3D model, basically. Right, chapter 5 now, I think. It's another pretty big one. I don't remember much from when I was 15, but I remember the ride to my Aunt Judy's house down in Tennessee. It was just me and my mother in the car, the air conditioner, the only noise for the several-hour drive, though it wasn't the only reason for the chill in the air. I remember knowing that my mother hated me and being terribly sad about the fact, especially because I deserved it. That's the fucked up thing. I remember feeling that I had earned everything I was getting somehow, but I didn't know why. Until the last few days, I've been sleepwalking through a life built on an obscured past without even questioning what would cause me not to remember something so important. But I've woken up now at least a little. Every day, bits of memory are coming back to me, but only about those things I've been told, as though someone has to point out objects in a shadowed room for me to notice that they're there. I decided I would talk to Mills on the phone and get more details of what went on before visiting my mother. The idea was that it would be better armed with knowledge. And to be honest, I wanted to be able to learn enough to talk myself into abandoning the idea and of contacting my mother at all. The last time I spoke to her was over the phone on my 18th birthday, and it was not a long or heartwarming conversation. It ended with her saying she hoped she'd never hear from me again, and I have lived up to that hope for over a decade. But despite repeated calls and texts, I hadn't been able to get Mills yet, though I kept trying on the road to Euclid, Ohio. Hearing Mills' voicemail always makes my heart jump slightly, though increasingly it was from fear rather than excitement or joy. I didn't want to panic, and I'd already booked a flight for Austin from the Cleveland airport for late tonight, but it was still hard to keep my mind on what I was doing while worrying about her. In some ways it was a blessing because I arrived at my mother's house before I realised it. I'd never seen it before, only knowing where she lived thanks to my aunt, who kept hoping we would reconcile someday and would periodically slip me unsolicited updates on how my mother was faring and what she was up to. It's not that I didn't care. I cared a lot. It's just that reminders of her were also reminders of a lot of pain and loss. I had always been closer to my father growing up, and when he died suddenly when I was 15, it sent both me and my mother into a tailspin. I froze as I realised something. I didn't remember how my father died. I didn't remember anything other than he's dead. What the fuck was wrong with me? The terror and anger of realising how profound my memory gaps truly were drove me from the car and up to the front door of my house. It was a small but nice house in a pleasant neighbourhood, and I tried to knock as demurely as I could, both for the neighbours' sake and my mother's. Still, I knew I probably looked wide-eyed when she opened the door. Hi, hello, Mum? I'm sorry I didn't call or warn you, but I was afraid you wouldn't see me if you knew I was coming. I smiled weakly, my stomach churning in knots. I was afraid if I stopped talking she'd just slam the door in my face, which might still happen anyway. I just really need to talk to you for a few minutes. I won't stay long and I won't even bother you again if you want. Can I please come in and talk to you for a few minutes? It's very important. I could hear my voice shaking and I hated it, but it couldn't be helped. For her part, my mother's initial look of surprise has slowly slid down into a look of suspicious anger. Are you on drugs? Is that what this is? Her voice was dry and hoarse sounding now, and I wondered if she had started smoking again. She'd stopped when I was little, when something happened. Fuck. I hear on TV about junkie kids coming to kill their parents. She raised a thinly penciled eyebrow. I think you've done enough killing already. I clenched my teeth, my anger and frustration burning away, my guilt and fear for the moment as I took a step forward and jabbed a finger at her face. There. That right fucking there. I'm so sick of this, of all of this. People are either treating me like I'm a piece of glass or they're shitting on me for things I don't remember. No, fuck that. I realised I made it 5 steps into the house now, my mother retreating from my angry tirade. Taking a deep breath, I started over. Look, I'm sorry, I know you don't want me here. I don't want to be here. But I need answers for things I don't remember. I'm not on drugs and I'm not going to hurt you, I just need your help. My mother looked up at me, her lips pressed into a thin line. I don't have any money to give you. I rolled my eyes. I don't need money, I just need help remembering things. Studying me carefully, she narrowed her gaze again. What kinds of things? I'd been mostly looking down at the floor since entering, but now I met her eyes again. Like why you hate me, for one. I really don't remember why or what happened when I was 15. I saw her eyes begin watering, and at first I thought it was sadness at how far apart we drifted, or regret for sending me away. Then I realised it was raw hurt and anger. Get out, I won't hear any more of this bullshit in my own shitting house. She was screaming like a mad woman now, her eyes wide and her face as red as she advanced on me. That was always your problem. You'd never admit to what you'd done, never admit to killing them or letting them get killed, whichever it was. I stood my ground. They? Who is they? Who did I kill or let get killed? She had reached me now, beating upon my chest with her small, thin hands. Damn you, Alex. What is wrong with you? Are you telling me you don't remember? Are you still going to play this game after all this time? I gently grabbed her wrists and held them still for a minute. Mum, Cassidy and Ellis are dead. They've been murdered because of something we were all doing as kids. And if I don't figure out what's going on, it may happen to the rest of us too. I sighed. fuck. It might even if I do figure it out. I let go of her wrist and step back. I'm not playing games. I really don't remember. I never could. I can't explain it, but it's only since I've been talking to the others the last few days that I've started to remember any of it. So I'm going to ask you one last time to please talk to me for a minute. Explain to me what went on, then I'll go away forever. My mum wiped at her eyes, and I could see her fingers were yellowed with age and cigarette tar. I realised I smelled alcohol on her breath when she was close by as well. She was looking at me like a wounded animal, and I hated myself for making it worse for her by being here. And if she wasn't going to... I don't know everything. I don't know much, really, but I'll tell you what I can, and then you have to go. You were always so close with your friends. When you were younger, I was happy for you. I know how hard childhood can be, and I have so many close friends, and having so many close friends can be a blessing. But as you got older and moved to that damn school, things started changing. You were more quiet and you barely talked to us about what was going on with you anymore. At first I chalked it up to adolescence. You were a growing boy, and I knew from my brothers growing up that a teenage boy can be hard to be around. And you weren't mean or getting into trouble, you were just not there. You were gone a lot of the time, and when you were home, you could tell your mind was off somewhere else. When strange things started happening around the school and the town, we didn't pay it much mind. Your father liked to joke about the teacher ghost, and we really thought that's all it was, a silly joke or myth. But then we almost had a car accident at one time and, well, you may not remember it, but it was almost really bad. And the way it didn't happen was so strange. I should have known then something wasn't right. Maybe I could have helped you, got you away from those kids at school. Still, people are blind to things so much, right? So time passed and I heard of things happening, but I guess I ignored it or thought it was just talk. Then one night you came in and said that Alicia was gone, and that she'd been taken by that thing at school. I don't know what you were talking about, but you were all torn up and terrified, so Who's Alicia? I felt as though my head was being torn apart, and as I spoke, each word echoed across my brain like a monstrous bell being rung. I saw my mother wanting to grow angry again, but she wrestled it back down when she saw how much pain I was in. My God, you really don't know. I think you've really forgotten her. We had still been standing at the edge of her living room while we talked, and she moved now to her mantel to retrieve a picture frame. It was the photo of me about age 12 along with my parents and a young girl that looked to be about 8. My mother held the picture in front of my face, tapping the girl with a long yellow nail. That's Alicia. That's your sister. She dropped her arm and staggered back, her face looking impossibly old and tired. That's half of why I couldn't be around you anymore. I could never believe that you really forgot her. How do you forget a person, especially her? She was so sweet and good, and she loved you so much. She was crying freely now, and I wanted to comfort her, but didn't quite dare. We all loved each other so much, but then you got caught up in whatever was going on at the school. Her face was harder now, tears sliding down her cheeks like water on granite. I don't know what you got tangled up in, whether it was some kind of cult, or if there was really some ghost or something at this school. All I know is that when you came in all scared and bloody, your father went to bring our baby girl back. I tried to get you to stay with me, but you ran out after he left. I called the police, but they were already out there. 7 people died that night. They never found my baby girl, but they found your father's body in the gymnasium, or parts of it at least. Her eyes were dry and blazing again. And you, I was so scared for you. Even when I knew you must have had some hand in her being at the school so late in the evening, especially when you were the one that knew where she was. When we found you and your friends out in the football field later that night, all unconscious, I was so relieved. Both because you were safe and because maybe you had answers, maybe you could help us find your father and Alicia. Her tone grew more wooden as she talked, and her eyes had wandered to the picture in her hands. She stroked it absently as she went on. But then they found your father around the time the EMTs were checking you kids out. They said you were scraped up but otherwise fine. Rescue crews were still searching the school, but I took you to the car and asked you what happened, where you'd seen Alicia last. Her grip tightened on the frame until I heard it crack. And you know what you said to me? Who's Alicia? I finished with her, remembering it as it was being told. I still don't know what had led up to that moment, but I remember my mother that night, so sad and scared, staring at me with her mouth open for several moments, asking me again and again, shaking my shoulders, and then she slapped me across the face. I could see she was remembering that too. I know it seems like I've treated you bad, Alex, and I guess I have, but Just like you couldn't help what you remembered, I couldn't help how that made me feel. I tried getting investigators, psychologists, even a preacher to talk to you. Tried to help you remember or quit lying if you weren't being honest about what you knew, but nothing helped. And every day, I felt like you were slowly killing your sister by either being intentionally evil or just stupid and weak enough to block out the most important thing you could ever know. She wiped her nose as she shook her head. I'm sorry, but I'm done. I've spent years trying to forget all this, to forget about you. I'm sorry you're in trouble now, especially if it's not your fault, but I can't be around you anymore. I don't hate you, Alex, but I don't love you either. Not anymore. I left my mother's house and drove to a nearby parking lot where I just cried for a few minutes. I think part of me had always thought we would reconcile, and the loss of that hope coupled with the memories of my baby sister flooding back as I tried to cope with losing her too. It was more than I could handle at first. I didn't know how much I was to blame for what happened to her and my father, but that didn't lessen my grief or my guilt. After a while, I checked my phone. No word from Mills and 2 hours until my flight. I decided to try her again, and this time she picked up right away, except it wasn't her, it was Thomas. Hey, Alex. Mills can't come to the phone right now, mainly because I have her tied up in the other room. Been trying to get the professor to sit on her chest with... which, fuck me, you probably don't even know what I'm talking about. But it doesn't matter. We need you, buddy. I think it'll work if you're here. I was momentarily confused, trying to decide if he could potentially be joking or something, but that made no sense. He didn't go all the way to Austin for a joke, and his voice sounded strange, like he was caught between laughing and crying, or just in the middle of going insane. Look, you're right. I don't know what you're talking about, but I'll come and we'll figure it out. Is she okay? Have you hurt her? Thomas gave an uneven laugh. No, she almost broke my arm, but she's fine. Not trying to hurt either of you, but I need you both to contact the professor and ask for its help. Help? With Cassidy, with bringing her back to life. Oh dear. And that was chapter 5. Well, this is just going a bit fucked up, innit? Oh, Thomas. You're not gonna bring Cassidy back to life, not with a fucking ghost. You know that's a bad idea. This ghost is killing people. Why would you want to use it to bring somebody back to life? Why would you want to use the ghost to bring Cassidy back to life when the ghost potentially killed Cassidy? Question mark. Oh, yeah. People in love. They do crazy things. I know, Ender, that is literally me reading this. I'm like, okay. Also, hi, Forfire. I don't know if you're still here, but hello. Hope you guys don't mind me having a break between chapters. I need a drink and a vape between them, I'm afraid. Sorry. Hello, Forfire. It's pretty interesting so far, though. Sad about Alex and his mum. That must be pretty horrible. Your mum saying, I don't hate you, but I don't love you. Oh, oof. I kinda don't blame bro for going to his car and crying. Thank you for checking in. You're 10 away from 100. In the next 2 weeks, if you're at all the streams, you'll get to 100. Well, ish, maybe. I just sat my vape down and I've already lost it. Where the fuck did I put my vape? There it is. One more vape before we start again. Right. We're on to chapter 6 now, I think. Yeah, I can look at the screenshot in a sec. I'll look at it before I start. I don't know. What do you mean? I'm confused. I don't know what Twitch did. What am I looking at? I'm not sure I'm meant to be looking at for. New doodle made? Oh. I'm interested in this new doodle. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what I'm meant to be looking at for fire. Maybe I'm just being stupid. Oh, it's supposed to be 3 in a row, not 2. My bad, my bad. Yeah, that is a bit strange. it'd be posted. I'll have a quick look at it before I do the next chapter. Let me see. Nice. Let's go, Ender. That's cool. Slay. It is very good. Nice art, honey. Right. To chapter 6. Thomas, you need to stop this. I know you're upset, out of your head with grief even, but this isn't the answer. I had spent a hellish 5 hours since my brief surprise phone call with Thomas waiting at the airport, waiting on the plane, waiting for a rental car and then driving as fast as I could to get to Mill's house outside of Austin. I didn't think he would hurt her, but I hadn't thought he would tie her up either. When I knocked on the door, he answered right away, and though I could tell he'd been crying, he looked oddly happy to see my face. He actually went to give me a hug before seeming to absently remember he had a small revolver in his right hand. With an embarrassed shrug, he gestured with the gun for me to come in. When I first entered the house, I moved past Thomas and started calling for Mills. She yelled back, and I found her laying on the bed in her room, her ankles and wrists tied with thin yellow rope. I had untied her right away, knowing he was at my back with a gun and not caring. Once I knew she was okay, I hugged her and turned to look at Thomas, who asked us to come sit on the sofa in the living room. It was there that I started trying to talk him back from the edge he was teetering on, but looking at my friend, his eyes weighed down with a hard glaze of insanity, my heart sank as I realized I wasn't going to be able to reason with him. No, Alex, you're wrong. I've thought it all out. We created this thing, right? And it's powerful, able to do all kinds of things. It's magic, so what's it to stop from helping us out with Cassidy? How about the fact that it just fucking killed her last week? Mills snarled at him, anger and fear in her voice scaring me more than Thomas. I needed to get her out of here. At least she'd be safe and maybe I could calm him down alone. But Thomas didn't even seem angry. He was nodding and smiling as though being patient with children who just didn't understand. I see your point and why you'd think that, but the last few nights I've been having dreams, or really the same dream repeatedly. At first I thought it was just stress and grief, but when it happened the third time, well, I realized it had to be the professor. It was sending me a message, telling me about what it could do. Mills gave him a warning look. Thomas, stop it. Looking at me, her eyes worried, she said, Do you remember a girl named Alicia? I'd been holding her hand and I gave it a squeeze now. Yeah, I do. I came from my mother's. It didn't go well, but she told me about my little sister. I've spent the last few hours remembering more and more about her since. I felt myself getting choked up again and pushed it down, turning back to Thomas. I loved Mills for being worried for me, but I was tired of being protected. So what did you see in the dream that makes you think the professor will help? What doesn't Mills want you to tell me? Thomas smiled wide, his eyes glittering in their sunken hollows. He looked 10 years older than even after Cassidy's funeral. I wondered for a moment when he'd last gotten any restful sleep. His voice and his movements had disquieting jerkiness to them, like a corpse dancing to an electric current. I stifled a shiver at the thought as I tried to listen. And then I was floating in the old gym at Stonebrook, floating past the floor and down into that old pool. You don't remember when we were down in that pool, do you, Alex? Well, that's all right, but I was down there, and I could feel the old professor down there with me too. But I wasn't scared, I was happy. It was like seeing an old friend, except I couldn't really see him too well, of course, and he kept looking like different things. But then I heard something moving around in the shadows of the pool, sloshing around in that smelly water down there in the dark. It was funny. I could see down there, but I couldn't see either. Not everything. It wasn't until it started floating out into the middle of the pool that I saw clearly what it was. It was Alicia, all grown up, or at least a lot bigger than when we lost her, and she was alive. I don't know how, but she was alive down there in the dark. I saw her look at me, and well, she kind of smiled, I think. Just think, Alex. If I can keep her alive all this time, it can bring back Cassidy. I felt like that's what it was telling me. He stopped talking suddenly, staring at me as though he expected his words to have answered any questions and solved any conflicts. That's fucking crazy, Tom. That's impossible. I stood up and he raised his gun half-heartedly, but I ignored it. If it was the professor contacting you and not just a dream, it wasn't trying to help you, it was trying to trick you. It's killed Ellis. Did you know that? It fucking crushed him against the ceiling of a parking garage like a goddamn roach. That's your buddy the professor. That's the thing you're siding with over your fucking best friends. I was standing over him now, and his lips were quivering as tears began to fill his eyes. I heard Mills start softly crying behind me at the news of Alice, but I kept my gaze on Thomas for a moment as he struggled to speak. We just need to try, okay? Get the professor to sit on our chest, any of us, talk to it. Even if I'm wrong or crazy, we need to try and talk to it, right? Find out why it's killing us. I reached down and snatched the gun away from him without resistance. I don't even know what the fuck you're talking about. Sit on our chest? What the fuck does that even mean? I cast my gaze back to Mills, who had a haunted look on her tear-streaked face. Do you know? She nodded slowly. I do, yeah, but I think it's a bad idea, if it would even work now. Thomas looked past me at her. It would. It would with him here. Alex was always its favourite. I went to rub my face and realised I was still holding the gun. Frowning disgustedly, I emptied it onto the floor and then set the gun down on the coffee table before stepping back to face both of them. Look, I want to know the rest of what's going on. Mills, I think you should just leave, or me and Thomas can. He can catch up to me on his own. She was already shaking her head. No, I'm not leaving you. No offense, Thomas, but I don't trust you for shit at the moment, and you're too upset to tell him everything anyway. Thomas was crying softly now, his head buried in one of his hands. I know, you're right. I'm fucked up, but please tell him. Maybe he'll understand if we tell him the rest. He looked up briefly, his eyes red. I really am sorry. I'd never hurt you guys. I'm just so fucking scared and alone. I squatted down next to his chair and gave him a brief hug. We're all scared, man, but you're not alone. Let her tell me the rest and we'll figure something out, okay? He nodded and I stood up again, moving to sit with Mills again. She was still almost painfully beautiful, even scared and exhausted and terribly sad. Her face shone with this inner light that touched the core of me. Watching her trying to find the right words, working to find the least painful path through, making me relive the worst thing that ever happened to us. I knew then that I was still in love with her. Would always be in love with her and only her. It was a strange time to have such a happy revelation, but I held on to the warmth of it as I waited for her to begin. By the end of 8th grade, the Stonebrook Six pretty much ran the middle school. We didn't bully anyone, but the strange combination of fear and mystery surrounding us was a powerful brew. We were popular without trying, at least on a surface level. And that's all that really mattered, because, as always, we really only wanted to hang out with each other anyway. When we got to 9th grade, things were different at first. Despite sharing the same main building and campus, there was a fairly sharp social divide between the two schools at Stonebrook, and we were now going from being the eldest middle schoolers to lowly freshmen. It meant older kids, different teachers, and more time having passed since the last tangible signs of the professor. People like to forget things that don't suit them. They use time and the elasticity of memory to sand off the rough edges of the past, and those things that are too hard to be reshaped are stored away in a musty corner of their mind. The professor, as compelling as it was in some ways, was an uncomfortable thought, and like any uncomfortable thought, it spent quite some time walking on the knife's edge of the townsfolk's collective and individual consciousness. On the one side, the eventual oblivion and rationalization and explanation. On the other, the same neglect and dusty demise that befell childhood memories and unpleasant pasts. During most of our 9th grade year, I think the professor was teetering between those two kinds of death, and its balance on the blade grew weaker with each passing day. If we had only left it alone, it may have faded away for good that year. But we didn't. We didn't want the professor to die, and I think we could all sense it needed our help to survive. Without any plan or coordination, we all began talking about the professor again in our subterranean hideaway. I mean, we'd always talked about it a little, even if just in a joke or passing reference, but by the spring of our freshman year we were back to discussing it regularly, the breath of our words fanning the embers back to life. I was largely to blame. I'd taken it upon myself to do research on different myths and legends. I think I just disconnected. I'm going to redo that line. I had taken it upon myself to do research on different myths and legends, specifically magical creatures that seemed similar to our professor, if I could find any. That was how I wound up reading about tulpas and telling you all about them. Tulpas, from what I remember, are supposed to be beings created by the mental or spiritual energies of one or more people, kind of like an imaginary friend you make real by believing hard enough. It was a strange idea, but it seemed to fit the professor better than anything else based on what we knew about it. Around the same time, Ellis came up with the idea of trying to see the professor. We weren't even sure it was still around, and the idea of verifying its continued presence in some way was attractive to all of us. Ellis's idea led us to getting a large baby pool and sneaking it into the back room down in our secret lair. We filled it with a few inches of water and then began calling to the professor. The idea was this. The professor was always invisible, and past attempts we had made to just ask it to show itself had gone unanswered, so either it couldn't become visible to us or it didn't want to. But if it was at least willing to come and visit us, and if we had some kind of physical form, we might be able to get some sense of its size or shape in the water. It was an odd idea, and Ellis admitted it was a long shot, but we figured it was worth trying, with the fun and challenge of sneaking the pool into the school almost worth the price of admission by itself. The funny thing was that it kind of worked. We set up the pool, asked the professor to come, and as we stood by the water holding hands, and this time it came. We could all feel it there, and after a few seconds Cassidy let out an excited gasp as the water began to slosh in the pool. As the liquid settled, you could see voids where the water didn't go. It was hard to say for sure, but it looked as though the professor was standing on 2 invisible legs in the pool. Except then it became 4 voids instead of 2. Then 1 larger one, then 8 small ones, and on, as we watched the water slosh and settle, every time around a different shape or configuration. Then it was gone. We all began talking excitedly, and at first we didn't really understand what we'd just seen. Then I realized what it was. It was changing shape repeatedly as it stood in the water. Big, small, many legs, or none. It must have shifted between a dozen things in the span of a couple minutes. We were excited about all of this, of course, but rather than satisfying our curiosity to know more about the professor, it just made us hungrier for the next step. Alex, you were the one that came up with a way of communicating with it. One day when we were all skipping a school assembly together, you started telling us about a theory you had. You said that if we had really made the professor up, made it what it was, why couldn't we make up a way of talking to it too? The idea caught on with all of us right away. We talked about it for a couple of weeks, figuring out and agreeing on the details. But by the end of the school year, we were ready to try it out. The end result was very simple. In part because making up rituals can be hard, and in part because I think we instinctually weeded out the elements that didn't work. I understand that's contrary to the base idea we were working from. In theory, any idea for the ritual should have worked so long as we believed in it enough, but that's just one example of why I don't think we had as much of control of things as we thought at the time. At some point, the newest and last member of the Stonebrute Six started guiding us. The ritual went like this. We sat cross-legged in a circle, knees touching and one of us holding a lit candle. We repeated the phrase, "Professor, come and join us. Professor, come and talk to us." And with each repetition, the candle would be passed to the next person in a counterclockwise manner. If the candle flame turned green, it meant the professor was present and willing to talk to us. The flame change was important, we had decided, because we wanted definitive proof that the professor came to talk. We were all excited to try it out, but when we went to do it the first time, we were all laughing a little and making jokes. I remember thinking it was odd that the year before the idea of trying to talk to the professor directly would have terrified me, but now I was somehow not only okay with it, but very concerned that we weren't taking it seriously enough for it to work. But I needn't have worried. The professor wanted to talk to us, and the candle hadn't made a full circle before the flame turned a bright, eerie green. You were holding it at the time, Alex, and suddenly the professor was on you. Having the professor speak through you is an odd sensation. You don't feel like it's inside you, but rather that it's sitting on top of you somehow. You feel an immense weight on your chest, and while it completely controls your voice and expressions when it's on you, it doesn't really feel like that most of the time. It's more like someone sitting on your chest and blocking your face from everyone while drowning out what you're saying with their own words and emotions, which, of course, is where we came up with the name. Over the next few months, we talked to the professor several times, and it sat on each of our chests more than once. Most of those seemed like magical experiences at the time, as though we were talking to a miracle, which I guess in some ways we were. But the first and last times were terrifying. When you were holding the candle and the flame turned green for the first time, we were all shaken. I don't know that any of us really expected it to work, and even if it did, we had no way of knowing how the professor would try to communicate. We had actually brought down a small chalkboard and a Ouija board just in case it needed a way to talk to us. Instead, it used you. Hello, children. The professor's voice was always so strange. It would vary from moment to moment, much like its shape had in the pool. One word it might be high and squeaky, the next it might be a deep baritone or almost bestial growl. Odder still was that we heard its voice through your mouth. We also heard it in our head. There it wasn't a voice at all really, but some kind of song, one that we could understand and that was somehow the same as words being spoken. We all looked around at each other as we heard the voice both inside and out. For a moment I wondered if we would all be too scared to speak when Ellis popped out with the first trembling question. Are you the professor? What might have been a short laugh echoed through the room, though it sounded more like a mixture of a crow's caw and a woman's scream. Yes, Ellis, I'm the thing you call the professor. Another glance passed between us, and then Thomas was asking, Are you a tulpa? A brief pause and then it answered, Tulpa's just a name really, a label for a larger concept that goes beyond what the word describes, but to answer your question, no, I'm not a tulpa, though they do exist. What are you then? I asked, my concern growing. Are you a demon? Another cawing scream of a laugh, this one long enough that I began to get worried. No, Mills, not a demon of any sort. What I am, well, there's no easy way to explain what I am, but I will try. This place, this world, is one of an infinite number of such worlds. Alternate dimensions, you might call it, and by one way of thinking, these infinite worlds sit at the center of a larger expanse of reality. The professor turned his gaze, your gaze, to Cassidy. You remember that time you and Alex cut open the baseball? Cassidy nodded vehemently, her eyes wide. Well, it's kind of like that. If these infinite worlds are the core, the next layer out are the 7 realms. I don't know everything, and I don't know all the realms. Hell is one of them. The Nightlands is another. There's the Incarnata, which is where your tulpas come from, Thomas, and then there's the Void. That's where I come from. Ellis frowned. Ellis leaned forward, his expression thoughtful. The Void, what is that? Are there others like you there? The professor shook your head. Oh no, there's only one of me. And the Void is a place where nothing is something. It's a place of unthought and undreamt things. Some might call it a dead place. But what would be wrong because dead is something, and the Void's only substance is nothingness? Personally, I think of the Void as a place of endless potential. It drew back your lips in a ghastly facsimile of a smile. Look at me, for instance. I was floating in the Void, dreaming lost dreams in an endless sleep when I sensed something new. It was a small and distant light. In that light, I could see Alex here, bored in class and thinking about the school being haunted. In some ways, I was watching myself be born. Even though it burned and hurt me, I moved towards that light. Soon I sensed something else. I was hearing Thomas telling the story of the lovesick professor's suicide. I was hearing all of your wonderful stories, pulling myself along them like a lifeline until I pushed through your membrane into this void. The professor let your lips go slack as his eyes took us all in. When I said there's only one of me, I meant it. Even in all the infinite versions of you and this school, only this version had the right combination of ingredients to create me. I've seen worlds where you all never meet or are all dead. I finally stopped looking at them because it saddens me so. It paused for a moment, so I took the opportunity to ask another question. Why does it make you sad? It didn't use your expressions this time, but its strange voice sounded hurt, as though I should know without having to ask. Because I hate to see any of you suffer. In many ways, the 5 of you are my parents, as much as you are my friends, and I love you all. I swallowed and was going to ask something else when Cassidy jumped in. We love you too, Professor. Another ghastly smile from you, and I decided to wait on asking the next question, but then your eyes were back on mine as the professor answered my question without it being asked. Mills, I just want to enjoy existing and keep doing so, help my friends and keep growing. Your eyes stretched wide as though held up by invisible hooks. In some ways, I'm not that different than having a puppy. It swung your eyes towards Ellis, or a tiger cub, and I need to sleep and eat so I can keep growing. I've been asleep these past few months and now I need to eat again. It licked your lips absently, and I'm very hungry. Okay, and that was chapter 6. So we actually got to talk to the professor that chapter. It's kind of creepy. So I'm assuming by hungry it means hurting / killing people is how it feeds. I'm assuming. Could be a wrong assumption, but that's what I'm assuming. Very creepy though. It's very interesting so far. Yeah, he just wants to, like, he even described himself as like a puppy, but I don't know. There's obviously something very, very sinister about him. Like, I get that, I suppose him hurting Ellie that one time was him protecting Cassidy, but I don't know, it just seems very aggressive and quite violent when I suppose his, in quotation marks, friends are threatened. I also don't know if he actually sees them as friends or parents or whatever the fuck he sees them as. Very aggressive puppy. Yeah. Anywho, have a quick stretch and then we'll go into the next chapter. We're on 7 of 9, so there's this one and then 2 more to go. And then we'll talk about it at the end. What do you mean you're very hungry? Ellis asked. His tone was light, but his face was serious and looked concerned. Are you talking about eating people? Another laugh, though this one sounded a bit more like someone sawing through sheet metal. I tried to repress a shiver and fight the urge to scream at it to leave you alone. That was the worst part of it that first time, seeing you not being you. The unnatural way the professor controlled you made you look like a life-size puppet or a corpse. Either way, it took everything I had to keep talking to it, which is funny considering how often we talked to it after that. Part of it was because it was the first time, of course, and we grew more accustomed to the strangeness the more it happened. Part of it was because it was you. I always had the same unease when it decided it was your turn. No, nothing like that. I'm not trying to hurt anyone really, unless they bother any of you, of course. It paused a moment and then went on, but I need people to know I exist, to have stronger belief in me from more sources. Signs that the ghost is around, that kind of thing. There's nothing you need to do. I'm strong enough now to take care of it, but I wanted to let you know I was back, and I hope you do talk to me again. Your ritual's very clever and works well enough, and I've missed you. I tried to smile. We've missed you too, Professor. And it was true. Despite our fear and worry of what we were dealing with, we were already used to the idea of the Professor being our friend and protector, the thing that made us special. So, whatever our misgivings at the time, they took a back seat to our happiness and relief that it was back. Over the summer, we talked to the Professor every few days. Never for too long, as it said it took energy for it to sit on one of us, and it needed to conserve what it had. But it always seemed happy to come when we did our homemade ritual, and it was glad to answer any questions for us when we asked. At first, we had more questions about what it was or what its end goals were, but we always got variations on the same pleasant reassurances. They were palatable enough and hard to refute, even if we had no real way of knowing if it was being honest or not. Then we started asking more questions about what it knew. Things about the void and the other realms, about mysteries in our own world. We learned about a lot of things, even if we didn't understand all of them very well. But there were gaps in its knowledge too, and I think it was being honest about them because it enjoyed telling us things we didn't know. For instance, it said there was little it could tell us about the void because of the realm's nature. It defied easy description or understanding, but it told us several stories about the Incarnata, which it seemed to know or at least enjoy the best. All I could tell of hell was that it existed and was vastly different now than it had been at one point due to some large battle that had taken place there. As for that place it called the Nightlands, it was more reluctant, just describing it as one of the larger realms, full of power and potential. There's a thing there called the Baron that, well, he's very ambitious. We had little context for any of that other than hell, of course, which we knew little about. So we focused on things closer to home. Bigfoot? It was sitting on Thomas' chest this time and gave a small grin. It had gone better at mimicking natural facial expressions, but somehow made it both more and less creepy when it tried. No, not in this reality. There are 2 species of ape and 1 marsupial that have not been identified yet and are sometimes mistaken for a Bigfoot, however. There's also a genetically modified version of an alpaca that's been the basis of Yeti legends for several hundred years. Weird. Ghosts? Aside from me, no. Only joking. Yes. There are several kinds of spirit entities that would fall under what you call ghosts. Vampires. Thomas' face lit up slightly. Oh yes, there are a variety of those, though none that actually fit the most common archetype popularized by Bram Stoker. It surveyed us, its eyes twitching slightly as it moved from face to face. Have any of you read Dracula, children? It's really excellent. We learned that while I had vast stores of knowledge from some unknown means, the professor still loved to learn new things and had a method by which it could draw information from books and computers without having to physically read or interact with them. Back when we had first started telling the professor stories about the school, it had fed on the school library and the textbooks and hundreds of lockers throughout the building. Toward the end, we found out it started exploring the internet, which raised its own concerns. But during that last summer, we were just having fun. And despite the vast wealth of knowledge we had at our fingertips, we oddly only had a few sessions towards the beginning where we asked Professor a lot of probing questions about things only it could know. Pretty soon we were just talking, telling about what we had going on in our lives, even though there was an unspoken understanding it already knew most of what we were doing, while it asked us questions and told us stories. It was really great at telling stories. I think it's like if you become friends with someone from another part of the world. At first you might be quizzing each other about your respective lands, but if you're truly friends, that phase passes and you move from differences between you to things you have in common. Shared experiences replace novelty, strangeness and excitement give way to familiarity and love. And we did love the professor. I think in its way, it loved us too. The problem is, we started treating it like it was a person instead of whatever it really was. Like Ellis might have said, the problem with being best friends with a tiger isn't just that you start thinking like a tiger, it's that you assume the tiger is starting to think like you. But a tiger has tiger thoughts and loves as a tiger loves. Soon enough, we started finding out what that meant. Over the summer months, we had heard tales of weird happenings around the town. The Brigham Well, you know, that stupid thing in the middle of the town square, it froze over in the middle of July. 5 different households woke up to find the furniture in their homes all swapped to different rooms, including the beds they were in. The bases at the rec department's softball field all burst into flames simultaneously, while over a dozen people were there to witness it after a practice session. And people did talk about it. And some of them did attribute it to the professor, but a lot of them just chalked it up to freak weather, an eccentric burglar, and trapped underground gases. Even if none of that made any real sense or had any proof behind it, it was easier for people to handle mundane excuses than an extraordinary truth. I think that frustrated the professor, and I like to think it really did try to collect more belief without hurting anyone else, but it was learning its own lessons from each experiment, and it saw time and people's aptitude for self-deception inoculating the town against belief in the professor. But it is very smart. It knew there was no real inoculation against fear, pain, or death. I had been getting begged by Timothy Egan to go out with him since the first day of sophomore year. He was a jock, but a smart one. He decided that he wanted to date one of the strange girls in the Stonebrook Six. He actually started hitting on both me and Cassidy, but between the blank, uninterested stare she gave him and Thomas's threatening glower, he had quickly settled all his efforts on me. 2 weeks in, I finally gave in. He was cute, and though I wasn't really interested in him, I'd never been on a date before, so I thought it might be fun. And it actually was. He was polite, took me to a nice place, was never aggressive or weird like I'd been afraid he might be. I knew that you didn't like it, which is part of why I went out with him at all, if I'm telling the whole truth. I decided 1 or 2 more dates with him might be enough to get you to talk to me about things if you felt the same way I did, but I'm getting sidetracked and we have other fish to fry. The first fish actually came up while I was still going out with Tim. You and Ellis were in Mr. Jameson's English class together, and the guy decided early on that he hated you for some reason. He'd say sarcastic things in class, mark you down on tests more harshly when he could get away with it. Ellis wasn't harassed like that, and no one else in your class or my class with him was either. Whatever his problem, it came to a head in early October when he accused you of plagiarism. It was the first big grade of the class, and all of his classes had the same project, an essay on one of William Blake's poems. You probably don't remember this, but me and you actually worked on ours together, with us both reading over each other's work several times to make sure it was good enough, particularly with Jameson looking for any reason he could find to give you a low grade. When you got it back with an F and a note that it had clearly been plagiarized, you were understandably furious. You told us that you asked him about it after class, and he said he could tell from the writing style that it had been copied from somewhere, though he couldn't offer any proof, of course, because it was bullshit. He was smirking and telling you that, as the teacher, the grade was entirely his prerogative. And that's when you both heard the noise from outside. I think just about the entire school did. Jameson's prized possession was a white 1971 MG. He would come wheeling up to his teacher's parking space that was just outside his room, occasionally honking its peppy little horn at the high school girls he liked the looks of, seemingly oblivious to the rolled eyes and snickers that he always received. More than once during class, I'd seen him glance out the window at the car, as though guarding it from some plot to vandalize it, or maybe just admiring it and daydreaming he was back behind the wheel instead of stuck teaching English to a bunch of 10th graders at Stonebrook High. I wish I'd looked up and seen his face when the two of you went to the window to see what all the commotion was. From what you told me, I think you both made it in time for him to see the last of it, but I got to witness the entire thing. I had gotten done with gym class early, which had been sprints around the football field followed by unimaginative calisthenics. Miss Perkins was out with knee surgery, and Coach Anderson didn't care about anything but football, so his main plan was to tire us out and send us away early. I was cutting through the teacher parking lot on my way back to the main building when I heard a screech of metal. It was Jameson's MG being slowly balled up and crushed like a piece of paper in some invisible giant's hand. Glass shattered and trim popped, but nothing flew off. Everything was self-contained in an ever-constricting sphere of force, a dying star collapsing into itself. Even with everything we'd seen and knew, I would have said it was impossible if I hadn't watched it happen. The small car was crushed into a ball less than 3 feet in diameter and then unceremoniously dropped back into the asphalt with a ringing thud. I knew it was Jameson's car, of course, but I didn't know about your essay yet. No one did. But as I looked around at the handful of other people in the lot and saw the terrified faces pressed against every nearby window, I knew that they understood what it meant, just as well as I did. When Jameson started wailing, saying that it was somehow your fault, as irrational as that was, well, it wasn't just his car that left the school for good that day. I remember us all getting together after school and talking about it, and none of us, even those of us that saw it, were really scared of what the professor had done, what he was capable of now. We were just happy that it stood up for you and gotten what it needed, because the professor was all anyone was talking about now, especially when Ellis shyly let it slip into a couple of people that it had happened while you were talking to Jameson about him trying to fuck you in your essay. We knew that our friend should be well satisfied. It took less than a week for us to realise our mistake. We had underestimated how hungry the professor was and had given up on trying to be gentle or doing things for a small audience. So, at that Friday's pep rally, with the bleachers parked and everyone watching, the professor murdered Timothy Egan. And that is chapter 7. So, it's getting a bit yikes now. Still excited to know why the professor's gone from usually doing things that protect the other 5 to now potentially killing them as adults. I'm not quite sure what, changed his mind. Clearly something did. Also, W on it for destroying that teacher's car. Yeah, he must have. But the teacher's car, he got what he deserved. You don't fuck up a student for whatever shitty reason he had. That's completely unfair. School is the pathway to your future. So, fuck that teacher. A quick stretch. Right. Second last chapter, chapter 8. Let's go. Also, I do apologize if I butcher some words. Some words I've never seen before, or they are American, and I have no idea how to pronounce them, I don't think. So like callus, I don't know what that is from the PE. I've never heard of that before. So, and asphalt, I've never heard that word used in the UK either. I think that's also American. So, I'm a bit confused at some words, because they're American words, so I don't ever hear them or see them in everyday language. So I'm a bit confused on how they're pronounced. So I apologize. Yeah, that. I don't know what that is. I've never heard that word before or even seen it. I don't even know what it is. Not got a clue what that is. If you'd like to educate me, feel free. If you know what it is. Because I certainly not got a clue. I really should have gotten water. I don't think the juice I've got. Workouts that don't require equipment. I don't know what we called that, but it wasn't that. Yeah, we never used that word. I don't know what we would have called it over that. I don't remember. I spent most of PE, from what I can remember, doing things like cross country and netball or dodgeball or badminton. That was kind of what we did in PE. We also used to do country dancing, which you guys won't do either. That's very Scottish. That's like Scottish dancing that you do at weddings and stuff. We would do that in the winter in PE for like 2-3 weeks. The black top on the road. Gotcha. Push-ups, pull-ups, sit-ups, then push-ups while doing a handstand. Kinds of odd shit. I don't know what we used to call that, because we never really did stuff like that. Like, that wasn't really what we did in PE here. We did, like, sports. That's what we mostly did. Like basketball, football, badminton, tennis, ping pong, stuff like that. We did sports or dancing. That's what we always did for PE, nothing else. Rounders is another thing we did. I don't know how to explain what rounders is. It's like, kind of like baseball, but not really baseball. That's the kind of stuff we did in PE. Or like track running, or long jump, high jump, discus, stuff like that you'd do in sports day. But yeah, I don't remember doing any things like push-ups, pull-ups. I did that when I did like martial arts, but it was just called a warm-up. Yeah, fair enough. Right, I'm going to move on to chapter 8 now. After the destruction of Jameson's prize car, we should have been scared of what the professor was capable of. Shit, we should have been scared long before that, but we weren't. Thomas and Cassidy were more than a little freaked out when they saw the balled up wreckage of the vehicle being... Jesus Christ. Thank you for following, Snowies. Snowy, thank you for following. Sorry, that scared the shit out of me. Anywho, where was I? Yeah, W jump scare. You probably saw me like flinch. Okay, let me start that again. Thomas and Cassidy were more than a little freaked out when they saw the balled up wreckage of the vehicle being loaded into the back of a dump truck. But even they thought it was pretty great that the professor was looking out for us yet again. As for everyone else at the school, while the professor was being talked about more than ever, the 5 of us actually had fewer people talk to us about it. Now they would usually just get quiet when we approached. In some ways, it was isolating, but none of us really cared. I had told Timothy Egan I didn't want to go out with him again that past Sunday, and at that time I thought it had gone pretty well. I could tell that he was starting to really like me, and I didn't feel right about hurting him to make you jealous. Unfortunately, on that Monday, around the same time that Jameson's car was getting wadded up by the professor, Timothy was leaving the same gym class I'd just left, but instead of going into the main building, he'd hung back with several of his friends. I don't know the details, but the rumours and snippets I heard later that where someone had asked him about how far he'd gotten with me. Feeling peer pressure, or maybe because he had hurt feelings, he decided to lie. Talked about how big a slut I was and how he was done with me now that he'd gotten what he wanted. The words were barely out of his mouth when he heard the yelling from the teacher parking lot and went to see what remained of Jameson's MG. I didn't know about any of that until after everything was over. We went through the rest of the week, still riding the buzz of excitement but unaware anything else was coming. Then came the Friday afternoon pep rally. Despite being better known for basketball, Tim was a backup receiver on the football team as well, and that Friday our school was going to be going against the Brockton Mud Dogs, who rarely won against anybody. The pep rally was relaxed and fairly fun, and they had incorporated a competition of sorts into the rally where all football players would take turns running up to a small trampoline that had been set up and try to dunk a basketball. It was silly fun, and most of the football players made a big show of hammering it up as they either dunked or missed terribly. Then Tim's turn came. Smiling as he took the ball from a cheerleader, he started running towards the end of the court. I noticed that he seemed focused and serious by the time he leapt for the trampoline, but maybe he just didn't want to mess up. When he landed on it, instead of propelling him up, it somehow sent him shooting forward as well. His face cut the bottom edge of the blackboard with a sickening crunch, but it did little to slow him. Instead, the blow just caused him to flip head over heels as he continued going towards the cinder block wall 15 feet beyond the edge of the court. When he hit the wall, he was nearly 20 feet up and struck first with the back of his head. We all heard the meaty cracks as his skull and several other bones gave way before he tumbled to the tile floor like a broken doll. It all happened so quickly that the cheers were still fading when the screaming started. Even without knowing the reason why, we all knew the professor was behind it. Tim's path and speed were unnatural and far beyond what would have been possible from him just jumping on a small trampoline. We weren't the only ones that thought that, of course, but what could anyone do? It was easier to just pretend that it was a terrible accident. School was cancelled for the day and for the following week, with grief counsellors being called in to talk to students and faculty that wanted to come to the campus on Monday through Wednesday. A candlelight vigil was also going to be held that Monday night in the gymnasium. Timothy's death affected us a lot more than any of the rest of the professor's actions had. Even if we had known about his shitty lies at the time, none of us would have thought he deserved to die for it. As it was, we met on Sunday and talked about what to do. We knew there was a chance the professor was listening in on us, but we knew no way out how to stop it, and there did seem to be times when it was unaware of what we were doing. At first, we just sat around talking about how horrible Tim's death had been to watch, and even lamely throwing out suggestions for it being something other than the professor's fault. Ultimately, it was you that came up with an idea. If we made him, we should be able to unmake him, right? We made up a ritual to talk to him, so let's make up one to banish him back to the void. Ellis had looked at you worriedly. It's a good idea, but we have no idea if it'll work. The professor this doesn't make sense. The professor could have talked to us anytime it felt like, and it just liked us coming up with a ritual. Maybe it feeds it somehow, or it just thinks it's funny. Either way, if we do that, it'll know what we're trying to do. He swallowed and looked around at the rest of us. It'll be angry about it. It'll turn on us. This led to a long silence. We'd all been thinking about that, of course, but Ellis putting words to it made it more real somehow. Finally, Ellis looked back up at you. But we don't have a choice. We have to try and stop it. It can't keep hurting people like this, and we can't keep acting like it's okay. Our plan was to go down in our normal lower level hangout beneath 6th grade hall and do the ritual while the candlelight vigil was going on. The hope was that the professor might be distracted by all those people there, and before it realised what was going on, it would be sent back to where it belonged. Our new ritual was a candlelight vigil of sorts too, though instead of the one candle we used for talking to the professor, we all had lit candles in the circle. We were going to take turns saying, "Professor, we don't believe in you, return to the void," and blowing out our candle. It sounded lame to us at the time, but we needed to keep it as short and simple as possible, and we had no way of knowing that anything more elaborate would work better. So there we all were, staring into each other's candlelit faces in the dark of an abandoned classroom. Cassidy started us off, saying her words with a slight tremble to her voice and tears rolling down her cheeks. It was hard on her, on all of us. Not just because we were scared, but because even after everything that had happened, it still felt like we were betraying a friend. She puffed out her candle and we heard a distant alarm start blaring. For a moment I thought it was a sign the ritual had worked, but then I realised that made no sense. I also recognised the sound. It was the building's fire alarm. We went back upstairs into pandemonium. There had been nearly 2,000 people in the gymnasium when the floor started splitting open like the scene out of an earthquake movie. 3 of the people on the floor, including the principal and Timothy's mother, had fallen into the darkness before anyone realized it was the motorized floor springing to life after decades, opening up its mouth to reveal the old pool below. Another 2 people had got trampled as everyone started trying to get out, running down whatever was the closest hallway and pushing through the doors, triggering the fire alarms as they went. We were moving against the current, the 5 of us heading towards the gym together without having to say anything or make a plan. We knew what was going on, and we were determined to try and stop it. By the time we pushed our way into the gymnasium, the floor had stopped moving, leaving a rectangular void in the middle of the floor 20 feet wide and 50 feet long. I remember hearing the dying screams of a little boy that had been stomped to death on one of the lower bleachers, and I was turning to go help him when I heard you yell your sister's name. I didn't understand at first. We knew some of our parents were going to the vigil, but neither yours or mine were among them, and as far as any of them knew, none of the 5 of us were going either. So how would your little sister have wound up there? I went to ask you what you were talking about when I heard it, Alicia's voice calling you from the dark beneath the gym. I would have said it was a trick, but I went to the edge where you were bent down peering into the shadows. I saw her looking up at us just like you did. She was terrified and soaked, but otherwise seemed unhurt. I started looking around for some way of getting down to her, pulling her up, but that's when the floor began to close. You tried to go in after her then. Me and Ellis are what stopped you. Maybe that was selfish, but I didn't care then, and I would still do it now. I think you would have died down there, and I wasn't willing to lose you, even if it meant we lost your sister. We wrestled and held on to you long enough that the floor closed back up, and as soon as you were free, you just stared at us for a long moment before running off. We tried to catch you, but there was too many people outside. I remember us looking for you for some time around the school, but then nothing. I was waking up with all of you on the football field, and later I heard about your father dying in the gym that night too. I'm so sorry we didn't try telling you this again sooner, but you were strange after it happened. You had memory gaps that I was actually a bit jealous of, and I was afraid if you remembered more it would either hurt you or cause you to hate me. So I talked to everyone into letting it go, and life went on. Your mum took you away to live with your aunt, but we kept in touch and stayed close all these years. I wanted more with you, still do, but I didn't feel right trying to start something with you with all these secrets between us. Just, please don't hate me. Any of us. We really did try to do the right thing, especially you and Ellis. I looked at her for a moment before leaning forward to hug her. I waved Thomas over and he joined in too. It was nearly 7 in the morning and we were all exhausted, but the last thing on my mind was being angry at the few friends I had left in the world. Mills looked relieved when we pulled apart. I was about to suggest we get some rest and then try contacting the professor when I heard a voice coming from Mills that I hadn't heard for a long time. This is all very sweet. I'm glad I could be a part of bringing you all closer together again, but I think we're past reliving old memories for now. Time to make some new ones. The professor was holding Mill's lips in a nasty smile, her eyes rolling and terrified as it spoke. Let her go. Talk through me, damn it. That old screeching laugh. In due time. Don't worry, I'm not hurting her. I don't want to hurt you either. I just need you to come visit me. The time's come for a class reunion. I thought I knew the answer, but I wanted to be sure. Okay, where do you want us to visit you? At the school? Mill's expression stretched into a grimace that was painful to watch, her eyes watering from the skin of her eyelids being pulled so taut. Yes, the fucking school. His voice was rough and angry, and it waited a moment before going on in a softer, quieter tone. The place that you left me, left baby sis, left so much, in the underneath, in the cold, in the dark. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Thomas lunge forward and snatch up the gun from the coffee table. For a moment I forgot it was unloaded and I let out a scream as he put it to his temple and pulled the trigger repeatedly, each metallic click bringing a shuddering gasp of breath from him. By the 4th click I saw that he had wet himself, and as I stood to help him he lowered the gun. I saw the professor in Thomas's face a moment before I heard its voice coming for him, wavering between tinkling bells and grating stones. Don't make me wait. Okay, and that was chapter 8, so we're away to go on to the last chapter. That's fine. Thank you for the alert, Hawk. I'm glad you're done with work. Hopefully you can rest after cleaning. Right. My goodness. So, we're now getting the context for why the professor's so pissed at them all. Because he started doing really awful things and they were like, okay, well, we need to stop this. The professor clearly does not like that. Also, this last chapter is really long. But let's get to it. To start out, I should introduce myself as the author of this final part. I'm Millicent Davis, or as my friends call me, Mills. For reasons that will become obvious through my account of what happened to the three of us when we returned to Stonebrook, Alex isn't in a position to write this. Alex finished writing out his last part, what I call Part 8, as we sat in the back of Thomas's minivan headed towards our old hometown. Thomas told us they had gotten the minivan when Cassidy first learned she was pregnant, the idea being it would wind up being filled with kids, but so often things don't turn out the way you expect. It's time I told you that I've been the one posting Alex's writings, which first had to be transcribed from the old notebook he'd written it all down in as things happened to him, to all of us. It was hard reading his words, reliving so many painful memories, yet again, and all with his voice in my head. But it was wonderful too. It let me see into his thoughts, into his heart, confirming to me that the Alex that wrote those words was the same person that I fell in love with back in 3rd grade. Even after all that's happened, despite what I'm doing, that knowledge of Alex's heart gives me comfort, and I'm ashamed to say it, joy. It took us 6 hours to get to Stonebrook from Austin, and all of us were going on minimal sleep. We decided to drive in shifts so we could each rest some on the way, but it was hard to do more than doze fitfully as the minivan trundled towards what could be our deaths, or worse. It's funny, but the phrase death or worse never made sense to me before. I've always been terrified of death, my own, of course, but even more so the deaths of those I love. The idea that there was something worse than death always seemed absurd to me. I was wrong. Stonebrook had been surrounded by chain-link fence and signs that declared the property condemned after the night of the candlelit vigil. Alex moved away, of course, but the rest of us got shuttled to another high school on the other side of the country for the next 3 years. With the new high school and middle school finally being completed and opened the fall after our graduation, I think most people in town tried to forget about Stonebrook, and no one would dare buy it or try to turn it into something else, but it still sat there like a tumour, malignant and with roots sunk deep into the heart of the place. I had half expected someone would have just bulldozed it after all this time, but aside from thick overgrowth in the yard and sickly vines covering several of the walls, it looked largely intact. The metal fence was rusted and hung limply in spots, and it didn't take much for us to find a spot we could lift up enough to scoot under. We were all scared, but we didn't let it stop us. I would like to call it bravery, and maybe it was, but it felt more like bleak determination at best. Or worse, we were caught in the gravitational pull of something much older, smarter, and stronger than us. We got into the school easy. The first door we tried was unlocked, and after a couple of tugs, it swung open with a squealing protest. We had flashlights, and despite it being early afternoon, we needed them as soon as we entered what I recognized as 6th grade hall. The 3 of us moved together, our lights and eyes constantly moving in every direction on the lookout for any threat. I think we knew it was pointless, that there was little we could do even if we saw something, but we had to try, or at least pretend to try. The illusion of safety and some level of control was the only thing saving our sanity as we journeyed further into the stale murk of the school. When we drew near the metal door leading down into our old hangout, music started playing from somewhere in those lower rooms. I recognized the song. You're nobody till somebody loves you. You're nobody till somebody cares. I pulled up short, wondering if we were meant to go down there instead of on to the gym, but Alex silently shook his head and nodded for us to keep going. I relented and followed them into the building's heart. The centre of the floor was pulled back again, revealing the yawning black that led down into that subterranean pool. I looked around with my light, searching for a good way to climb down, when Thomas pointed to the far side of the opening. Bleachers had been ripped apart and reconfigured into a staircase that led down below. The professor was making this all as easy as possible. We went around to the far edge and peered down, seeing the stairs did, in fact, go all the way into the oily liquid sheen filling the pool's bottom. Alex tested it with his foot, and when it seemed stable, he started down with me behind him and Thomas bringing up the rear. The air grew colder as we went down, and as we reached the bottom we found the filthy water there was freezing. I went up to the middle of my thighs and I could immediately feel my feet starting to go numb. We stood there for several seconds, looking at each other anxiously between sweeping probes of the shadows with our lights, waiting for something to happen. Then Alex started to scream. My chest pounding, I turned to look at him and saw he was looking off towards one of the corners of the pool. I shined my light where he was looking and couldn't understand what I was seeing. There were two bodies there, a man and a woman, both horrifically gaunt and pale, but somehow familiar looking too. They looked recently dead, and between their twisted expressions and the way they were huddled together, I knew the pair had been terrified at the end. I wanted to move closer to get a better look at their faces, sure that I knew them somehow, when I realised that Alex was still yelling. I was turning back to try and calm him down when he suddenly stopped. Meeting his eyes, I saw the professor was on him now. "Hello, children. Welcome home." I tried to control my fear and anger. "Yes, we're here, Professor. What do you need from us? How can we make this all stop?" A coarse, watery chuckle. "Full of questions, aren't we? My dear friends are very concerned what I want and need now." It pulled Alex's face into an angry grimace. "All it took is killing two of us to wake you up, to make you care." Thomas spoke up. "You didn't have to do it. You didn't have to kill my sweet Cassidy, you motherfucker. You didn't have to kill her or Ellis." I turned Alex with withering gaze on him. "You aren't in a position to be criticizing the treatment of our friends, are you?" Thomas recoiled and fell silent. Turning back to me, the professor continued. "But your questions, if late in coming, are reasonable and necessary, and I don't think they're the only questions you will have before this is done, but I can best answer most of them with a story. Alex's story is finally ready to be told. I'd apologize for the uncomfortable accommodations during story time, but this is where you left us to rot, after all." Before I could ask anything else, it had begun. Alex's story. Once there was a boy named Alex. One day when he was bored in class at his creepy new school, he had a thought. A terrible and wonderful thought. What if the school that he and his friends found themselves at was haunted? He shared this thought with his friends, and this led to stories and adventures with their new friend, the Professor. As you already know, the Professor was able to come from a realm of unbeing through your words and thoughts and belief. That place was called the Void, and I had no interest in returning there. It was an empty, lonely place, and it was now in a good place with good friends and so many things to see and do. For a long time everything was wonderful, and the Professor grew stronger. But the Professor was very smart, and it knew these good times might not last forever. So it used a bit of its new strength to talk with its friends and better protect them, even if they were away from the school. It also used some of that strength to talk to Alex's sister Alicia in her dreams, planting the seeds it needed to summon her if it became necessary for its fallback plan. In time, it began to hope it wouldn't necessary after all. It was happy and its friends were happy, or so it thought. But then its friends decided they were tired of the Professor. They thought it was just a pet or a curiosity, some novel addition to their lives they could take off the shelf when they felt like it, or when they wanted everyone else reminded how special they are. The Professor understood this, but it still loved its friends, and it tried to grow and survive without hurting anyone else. That eventually it came to understand that people only really understand pain and fear. Even love is given shape by the relief of pain, of loneliness, and the fear of losing that which you love. And the Professor was no different, and while it loved its friends dearly, it loved itself more. When the Professor learned what the rest of the Stonebrook Six were planning, a ritual of unbeing, it was afraid it might work. But more than that, it was hurt by the betrayal. It decided that it needed to be strong enough to resist any attempts to drive it back into oblivion, and the best way to do that was to slaughter several people in front of a large crowd. It had already grown significantly stronger from Timothy Egan's death, but imagine what it could do with a few more. It called little Alicia that late afternoon before people started to arrive for the vigil. It told her to be quiet and not let anyone see her come, which she did without fail. Her eyes were glazed over and her mouth was drooling just a bit, but no one saw her close enough to notice as she walked to Stonebrook. She slipped into the school stealthily and made her way to the gym, where the floor was open and waiting. The Professor picked her up and brought her down into the water, and it wasn't until she was in the cold and the wet that she started to wake up. Fortunately, when the Professor sealed the floor shut again, no one could hear her down there screaming and crying in the dark. Later, when Alex went to save her, you and Ellis stopped him. The Professor was so relieved. It didn't want to hurt any of you, and it tried to just end it there, going so far as to close the pool again in the hope she would all just go away, but Alex wouldn't stop. He ran from the rest of you, finding his way through the throngs of people rushing around outside. He got shoved down 3 times into the gravel parking lot, and once he would have had his head stepped on by a large, terrified man if the Professor had not reached out and shoved the man away. But Alex was scared for Alicia now and didn't notice. He just kept going home to get help. His father showed up at the gym a few minutes later, screaming Alicia's name. The professor knew where this was heading. They would try to find Alicia and take her away, ruining his plan. So it killed the man where he stood. I hoped this brutal act would be enough to scare Alex away, but no, he came back into the gym just moments later, screaming for the professor to let his little sister go. I knew now that Alex would never give up, and it wasn't sure it could keep her hidden from him the way it could others outside of their circle of 6. So with great sadness, it opened the floor one last time. Alex climbed down into the lower depths, and Alicia ran to him with a discordant wail, her eyes full of fresh tears. She was already half mad by that point, but she knew her big brother when she saw him. Just then, Alex felt himself being dragged into the dark and tried to push his sister away towards the light, but it was too late. Too late for both of them. Or was it? As Alex looked up, it saw a figure climbing back out. Scrambling over the floor's edge as the opening began to constrict again, it turned back. Alex realized with horror that he recognized the person looking down at them. It was himself. The professor has many plans, plans within plans. One of his plans was that, if it came to it, if it found itself betrayed or alone, it could find someone and take them, pull them down into the dark and sustain them, feed on their belief and their fear, taking in a little more than it would have to expend to keep them alive. It picked Alicia because it knew her through Alex, and through Alex she knew it. Initially, as it sat in the shadows mulling over this plan, this failsafe if his friends ever turned on it, it also saw the collateral benefit of Alex's grief and guilt over the loss of Alicia. These emotions would fuel Alex's belief of the professor and help it to survive. But when Alex wouldn't leave it alone, when he insisted on returning for his sister, the professor had to make a choice. Risk Alex somehow taking Alicia back and leaving it to starve as it was slowly forgotten, or take Alex as well. With 2 people to feed from, the professor could live and grow stronger for quite some time. It was Alex's eyes that made it change its mind. When Alex felt the professor's grasp begin to tug them back into the dark, his eyes were so full of fear and despair that it was more than the professor could stand. It couldn't let Alex go, but it always had a plan even for this. If the children had given it substance and strength just by believing, perhaps it could do the same. Its mind was not a human mind, or even a tiger mind. Its mind was vast and deep and so terribly, horribly quick. Before Alex had been dragged 3 feet, it had imagined a new Alex, perfect down to the last cell, even to the dirt and blood on its face. And not just physically. For all intents and purpose, it was Alex, or as close to the professor was capable of, and the professor was capable of quite a lot. The only thing this Alex lacked was access to certain memories, things that would cripple him and keep him from having a good life. Things that would bring him back looking for Alicia next week or month or year. These things were deeply buried. The professor removed and sacrificed Alex's belief in it so this version, Opus Ren, could live and be free. Then it sent the new Alex out into the football field where he lay down with their dear unconscious friends and fell asleep. In the next few hours, several people pried open the floor and came down to search for survivors. They found the bodies of the others but no sign of Alex or Alicia. The professor was powerful enough with both of them for strength that it could keep them glamoured and undetectable. They screamed for help but no one heard them. And eventually the search was called off, then things were quiet down in the dark. The professor knew little of the outside world in the following years. It was conserving and building its strength as best it could, but it was also expending more than it had originally planned. For it was not just keeping Alicia and the original Alex alive in the pool now, it was having to continue to believe in the new Alex too. The Alex that crawled out of the pool that night was being seen and talked to, and every day he grew stronger because of the shared belief of the world around him that he existed and he was real. And he was Alex in every way that mattered, but he was still unique in a way that made him vulnerable. The professor's belief was of a different quality than most. It was not from this place, and its beliefs, while powerful and potentially permanent, required regular attention to stay alive, and it wanted the new Alex to stay alive. It wanted him to have a long and happy life, so it sacrificed some of the power it was collecting to make sure that happened. But then something unforeseen happened. The professor is not perfect or infallible, and it made a mistake. It recognized too late a sickness in Alicia and its Alex, a simple staph infection, but one that obliterated their bodies faster than it could heal them. It could have repaired the damage if it had pulled away its support of the other Alex, but of course it couldn't bear to do that, so it watched them finally die instead. For a time, it resigned itself to starving to death in the darkness. It still had those that remembered it, that feared it somewhat, but that was old and abstract terror paved over years of new memories and repression, not enough to sustain it for long. The problem was, it got scared. When it saw itself approaching the end, saw the void opening up to reclaim it, it knew it couldn't just let go. It wanted to survive too much, so with the last of its power it killed Cassidy. Within a few hours it felt far stronger. After Ellis it was stronger still. And as Alex, your Alex, came to remember me, I felt more like myself again. Then I need your help. Enough of this, Thomas bellowed, reaching into his waistband and pulling out his gun. The last time I had seen it was when Alex had taken it from him while the professor was using Thomas back at my house. He hadn't gotten it back before we left, apparently, and was now pointing it at me. Mills, this is all lies, don't you see this? It's self-serving bullshit, it's all part of its plan. I was so broken at that point I didn't care much if he shoot me. I didn't want to believe what the professor was saying, but as it talked, I looked closer at the two huddled corpses. I knew why they were familiar. They were versions of what Alicia and Alex might look like after years of insanity and darkness. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I just wanted everything to stop for a minute. Just stop. But it wouldn't stop. And the professor was talking again. Yes, this was Thomas' new idea since you left your house. Kill the two of you here and then himself. The idea being that if and when someone finds you, they'll blame him, not the professor, and I'll fade on away. Isn't that right, Tom? I turned back to Thomas and saw that he was frozen, his eyes bulging. The professor released his head enough for him to speak, and he gasped out. It's the only way. We all have to die to stop it. We can't let it out. I looked at Thomas for several seconds, weighing the truth and merit of his words. He might be right. It might be the only way to stop the professor. And didn't we owe it to the world to not let it out? Then I looked back at Alex. Maybe not the original Alex, but the only Alex I had left. I might be willing to die, but was I willing to let him die too? And the professor had always been true to its word with us, really. We were the ones trying to hurt it, not the other way around. Thoughts of Cassidy and Ellis pushed the weight up and I ignored them. It explained that, and we would do any different to protect ourselves? To protect the ones we loved the most? Thomas, I'm sorry. I was crying when I said it, but my voice was steady. Turning to Alex, I told the professor my choice. Thomas has to die. A moment later, there was a fine red mist floating in the air where Thomas had been. I let out an involuntary scream and started shaking. Then I felt Alex's arms around me. It took me only a moment to realize the professor still had him. I'm sorry for that, Mills, but that part of it is over now. You and Alex will be safe from now on. I just need you to do one last thing for me. When it began to whisper its plan to me, all I could do was laugh. Alex slept all the way back, and I could tell when I woke him that he doesn't remember anything of what happened while the professor was sitting on him. That's for the best. I'll tell him in time, over the next few days, even the parts about where he came from. I can't have secrets between us again, and I won't risk him learning about it through these posts or some other means. I'll tell him everything once it's too late for him to stop me. The main things I need him to understand are that he's safe, and how much I love him, because I do. There's a part of me that says I'm being selfish or delusional, but it's a small part that gets smaller every time I look at him. Like the professor, I'm doing what's necessary for us to survive. What I asked in return for our safety and happiness wasn't so bad in the end. Alex had done most of the work already. It just told me to find a place where we could tell the story of the Stonebrook Six, the story of how the professor came to be. So after I finish writing this final part, I'll start posting each portion one at a time. I'll post, then wait. Post, then wait. And those of you that read the first parts will hopefully come back for more. Come back to hear more about the professor. Come back to believe a little more. By the time you made it this far, it'll be too late. And you say to yourself, well, that's just silly. It's just a story to you. That's what I told the professor when it first told me its plan too. But it just laughed its dead crow laugh and said, we're all just stories to each other, Mills. And the head doesn't tell the heart what to believe. Just tell people about me and I think I'll do just fine. The more I thought about it, the more I think it might be right. So congratulations, and I'm sorry, you now have a tiger for a friend too. And that is the end of We Made Up a Ghost and Now It's Killing Us. So that was the final part. My goodness. It was a bit of a roller coaster of emotions. Oh, sorry, I was really struggling to fucking read on that last part. I've done so much reading, my mouth is so dry and I'm just stumbling over words. So I apologise, that last part was a bit of a rough read. My goodness, my mouth is so dry. I need my lemonade. Where is it? Oh. Yep, we all have a tiger as a friend now. Also, I'm really sorry if you hear me on my lemonade. It might hiss at me. Damn, that is loud. There you go. Very angry, aggressive lemonade opening. You're welcome. Yeah, lemonade in the UK is like Sprite, just without the lime. It's like carbonated lemon juice. Yeah, keep it for DMs, no. That was a good story. It's quite creepy. I like the idea of it though. It was pretty interesting. Gonna shrink that window back down now because I don't need it to be so huge. Oh my goodness. Oh my god, it's been 3 hours. Fucking hell. Okay, this went on for a little bit longer than I thought it was going to, so yeah. But I hope you enjoyed the story, and I am going to just chill for the rest of the night now, I think, after that. Maybe go get something a little bit more hydrating. Oh, I'm glad you had fun. I'm glad you enjoyed yourself. I will upload it on YouTube soonish. I don't know when, 'cause I have 2 more videos to upload before that. I've got Wednesday's League VOD to do, and then I've got Thursday's Resident Evil 6 VOD to do, so it'll be sometime soon. I'll try and upload them both tomorrow. But yeah, so you'll have it there to listen to whenever. One day I'll maybe do reading books, and like I'll do it where like I record it, so if I fuck up I can just re-record it, so there's not me stumbling over and being like blah, 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 through it, because yeah, it's hard to do live. Fucking kudos to people that can read without stumbling, because there's some words where I was just reading the sentence, I was like, what the fuck did I just say? What did I just read? So I don't think it was the writing, I think I was just like low-key dyslexic. I was like, what did I just read? So yeah. But it was fun. I enjoyed it. Yeah, my brain was melting by the end chapter. I was like, what the fuck? What am I saying? Yeah, I'm sure there were some things I said there was like, did not make sense. But it's fine. You got what I meant. You can go, I sent the link in chat earlier. It's also on Reddit. You can look it up if you'd like to read it yourself. But yeah, it was a pretty cool story. Any hoosters, kiddos. I am going to pop off now for the night, so I will see you again sometime next week. I'm not sure when and what I'm doing. Depends on people's availabilities. I know I'll probably play RE6 again with Foot maybe next week. Might do Peak or League again, maybe, we'll see, on Wednesday. And then the weekend, I definitely have to finish Separate Ways. I've been trying to do that for weeks, and I either have to cancel stream or move it or something. So I'm gonna try and actually fucking do it this weekend. Probably not. I really did not enjoy League on Wednesday. I don't like League of Legends. I don't particularly want to play it. But yeah, we'll see. Also, yeah, no problem. I only play it when I get dragged forcibly by my friends by the fucking throat, and that's exactly what they did. But yeah. Anywho, I will see you guys all next week. I hope no maybe customs, but I'm not playing against fucking strangers. Anywho, League jump scare, no. Thank you, guys. Thank you for being here and listening to me, guys. I appreciate it. Anywho, we are gonna hop off, so I just want to quickly thank people that lurked, that listened, that chatted, that followed today and stuff. I appreciate you all very, very much. Mwah, mwah, mwah. And I will see you all next week. Have a good rest of your weekend, and good luck with those going back to work tomorrow. Bye bye. Mwah, 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 mwah.